Hi, everybody. Welcome to the LVX Files. I'm Sean, your host, and with me, my special guest today is Brenndon, and he is the founder of Hiero, the occult social club. So, Brenndon, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be chatting with you. This is my first podcast.
Oh, you've never done a podcast before?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it's fairly painless.
Yeah. I was just telling my boyfriend Kyle, I was like, I'm worried if they're going to be like gotcha questions. So I'm like, I also know Sean and Sean's a member. And also, like, what is anybody going to get me with?
Yeah. No, there's no gotcha questions. There's no, like as the whole theme of my podcast is really basically just, each guest their life story and talking about like, their spiritual magical path from that first sort of moment, that kind of like aha moment that
Yeah.
first starts them on their path, and the books that inspired them, the people, traditions, orders, if any of my guests like belong to or have belonged to a tradition or an order, and talking about, not giving away secrets, I don't mean that, talking about
Yeah.
that is part of their path, a part of their lives. So no, we're just basically having a conversation, a harmless, fun conversation. So with that being said, let me take a sip of water.
Yes.
I've been doing so much ritual work the past couple of days that like I speak for like 30 seconds and my mouth is just like completely dry.
Are you energized or like drawn blank by it? Because you know how it can go either way. Like you've been doing a lot. Are you energized or more tired?
Normally energized, and I get
Mhm.
very focused, like almost, well, I shouldn't say go so far as say obsessively focused, but very laser focused.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just become um just a lump. Like
Yeah.
I'm on the sofa and
Mhm.
I can't focus on anything. I can't even, read, to relax or anything. Like I like
Burnt out.
completely. But
Yeah.
that's pretty rare. Normally I'm pretty, I get pretty energized and
Mhm.
focused and whatnot. Just I've been, the past couple of days I've been doing a lot more ritual work than normal.
Mhm.
So a lot more chanting, a lot more vibrating, and yeah, so I'm a little my voice is a little off right now. So anyways, this podcast isn't about me, although I do love
Are you
talking about
relaxing? I
myself.
keep asking you questions, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop.
Yeah. I no, well, see, that's the thing. Like you're usually in that position, in office
Yeah.
hours where you're like, hey, here's this question. Yeah, so no, I mean, if you have a question for me, definitely ask it. It's just this podcast isn't about me, but I will admit I do like talking about myself. So I really do. Because I'm such a unique and amazing individual, that I'm worth talking about. So,
You are like honestly, you are worth talking about.
oh, I really am, like totally like TMZ worth talking about. Anyways, however, we're here to talk about you. So we are gonna start right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm always curious about how people first get on their magical or their spiritual path.
Mhm.
Like usually there's that, there's a series of events or
Yeah.
situations, but there comes like that one sort of like aha moment that
Yeah.
really sets the trajectory. So let's start there.
Yeah. So to like preface it a little bit, I would say mine was kind of like a drip, 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 and then the ceiling broke out. Growing up, I did not grow up in an especially religious home at all, but my mother was into kind of the new agey ideas, at least a few corners of that.
Mhm.
So conversations about manifestation and just basically the power that your mind has over your experience. were just like kind of part of the conversation. And I was always very spiritually curious as a child. So we talk about it for
She
hours.
owns a copy of The Secret, right?
I believe so. But it was different things for her. It was more like conversations with God, um, and a few other titles. I remember I was super young when I read like The Alchemist and like the Four Agreements. Like I was like in like fourth grade or third grade.
Okay.
So those just like ideas were around. Um, and because I was like interested in that stuff, gotten the usual like Buddhist interest pipeline and kind of stayed there for a while, just, meditating and working on mindfulness and all of that.
Like how old were you at that point?
So I didn't start meditating until what I call personally like the crash of 2014. I went through a bad breakup. Um, and just really started, that was the beginning of true shadow work. I had never encountered loss in that way before, so I'd never had any of those kind of things. A lot of silt gets shaken up from the bottom when anything like that happens, but I'd also never had a reason to look at myself as
Right.
someone who someone else is like, I don't want to be around this person anymore. And so it was a lot of like
Yeah.
self-examination and stuff, and that got me into meditation because I fell into a depression and all of that. So that was maybe, yeah, I said 2014 for that. It wasn't until all of this started for me relatively recently. I think it was January of 2017, or the end of 2016. What kind of got me into looking into all of this in earnest was watching The Magicians on Netflix. Have you watched that?
I watched season one. Um,
Mhm.
I can't remember what channel it was on, and it started out good-ish. And I say season one because I kind of feel like maybe I started watching season two and stopped.
It
It,
goes off the rails.
it, well, there was, they were in like a different land and they,
Yeah, yeah.
they
I'm
were,
not
they were,
remembering
they,
it.
there were,
Hillary.
they were, yeah, that's it. And they were kings or something. And
Yeah, yeah.
it
That's like season two.
okay. So that's where it just lost me. And I'm like,
That's
I'm not much of a television watcher to begin
yeah.
with. So it just kind of, I'm like, yeah, I'm not into this, and I just stopped watching it.
That's where it got me more was the second season because the first one to me read a little bit like this is like Hogwarts for like college age students, which I'm
Hmm.
like, okay. But then it really started going crazy. But anyway, so that just, I mean, there have been a few points in my life where, you take to the internet and you're like, is magic real? Or I want to look up witches. And I would get in these like fits sometimes, just like throughout life, where I'd be like, I'm gonna go to the internet and find the answer. I'm like, I'm gonna figure out aliens or I'm gonna figure out Bigfoot. And after watching The Magicians, I was like, I'm gonna figure out magic. And the internet had changed a lot since the last time that I had looked around, and I'm finding all of this stuff on Tumblr and Instagram, and I'm having a conversation with my mom, who, again, to go back to the prefacing, I call her like a non-practicing witch. My
Right.
whole life, literally, there would be instances of ladies just stopping her in the street, being like, "You need to watch the power of your thoughts. They're extremely strong. I know you, this, that, and the other." And they would just completely read her and then just walk away. And I was always like, "What's going on?" And
Interesting.
like, yeah, it was very weird. And so I call her and I just tell her kind of like on a lark, I'm like, I'm about to figure out magic. Like, I'm tired of this. Like, what is, and she just, it was kind of like a movie because she didn't have the response that I thought a parent would have. She just goes, magic is real, hon. And I'm kind of like, whoa, wait, what? And she's like, I have always been scared to like pursue that, but I think you should look into it more.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a very topsy-turvy kind of way to get into all of this.
I
Uh,
don't know, to be honest. Now, I'm older than you, so
mhm.
um the idea of, oh, well, I'm going to figure out magic, so I'm going to hit the internet.
Yeah.
It's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays with TikTok and everything, it's just like, oh, I feel sorry for newcomers.
Mhm.
So that's hard for me to wrap my head around. And and then you throw in that your mom's like, oh yeah, magic is real. And it's like
We'd
mind
never
blown.
had any conversations about this. Of course, like anybody else, she's into movies about witches and stuff, but we'd never gone there, never
Yeah.
spoke about anything like that. And so it was a very surprising response, uh,
Yeah, sure.
an energizing response. I was like, okay, like what are we getting into?
Mm,
The first place I landed, this is all kind of build up. I had a big initiatory event.
right.
Felt big. We
Mhm.
we all talk like they're big stories. They probably just sound like stories. But the first thing I got into was sigils. Chaos magic is obviously very accessible. Something we talk about in office hours sometimes is how I felt initially very called to ceremonial magic.
Right.
But something in me was just like, that's like 600 level. Like, don't start there. Like, start with something that makes sense to you.
That feels a little bit more accessible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
my first real like bump, the first nudge was I did a sigil to increase my artistic ability. I'm like decent, like I can draw. I'm not a person who can't draw, and I'm
Hmm.
right-handed, and was making the sigil. Um I was doing the method of you write out the sentence and you get rid of the vowels and you turn everything
Right.
into.
Right. Right.
And I'm sitting there and just doing it in the living room with my roommate. And I remember feeling pretty like energized by the experience. It just felt cool. I felt like it was clicking.
Yeah.
And afterward, my roommate was like, "What the fuck were you doing? The room felt so fucking weird." And I was just like, "Oh, I'm making I kind of like explained it. I'm very like nonchalant with things, so I don't like hiding things. I'm usually doing
Right.
something out in the open, and if someone asks, I'll tell you." So I was like, "Oh, it's a sigil. It's supposed to do this, that, and the other." She's like, "Okay." But what was interesting was I wound up buying a book. I think it was called "Drawing on the Left Side of the Brain" or "Right Side of the Brain," and it spoke about how art teachers some of them used to make art students do everything with their left hand because they felt like it was more creative. There was just more merit to what came out of the left hand. And I thought to myself, something said, try that. And when I say that I am probably of a magnitude of 7 to 10 times better with my left hand,
Wow.
when I couldn't, and everyone tries to write with the hand that's not dominant. It looked like shit. Like
Yeah.
I've done that. It was so, I was like, what the hell? Like I didn't, I just birthed a new hand. My roommate is also an artist who went to SVA, which is an art school. No, went to Pratt, sorry, which is an art school. And she was amazed at the difference. She's seen me do things and she was like, what the hell? And I was like, it was that sigil thing. Like I've used my left hand for things for years. It was really remarkable. And that like threw me more down the rabbit hole. And something that I was seeing in a lot of places were people speaking about the Greek gods, which I had always had an interest in, but was always very fixated on Apollo. And I was like, that's so cool that people are like, do I think this is real? You're trying to feel everything out.
Right. Yeah.
And, this is in fits and starts. It's not like I dive in and it's the only thing I'm doing. A few weeks go by. I was working at a place where I was working at nights. I come home late. I'm on the couch by myself. I'm meditating. And I fall into and unusually deep meditation, unusually fast. And I'm just taking mental note. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then I feel like the only way I can describe it is overcome with this feeling of love. I'm just like, what is this? I was just in love with everything. And I start rocking. I realize I'm rocking back and forth slowly in spite of myself.
Mhm.
And I realize that I'm also like looking up. And, you know, you're in meditation, so you're just doing body checks. And I feel a very slight pressure around my head. And I'm checking in with myself. Am I wearing a hat? Because I was wearing a hat at work. Couldn't tell the difference because of the pressure that was there anyway. So I felt it. I was not wearing a hat. And it was just this continual like pressure. Then all of a sudden I'm saying I love you out loud to no one. And it was again in spite of myself. And I'm kind of like, what is going on? And I think to myself, just flies through my head is the image of like a laurel crown. And I'm like,
Okay.
could that be what the pressure is? I don't know. All of this is very new to me. I hear that inner voice say fast for a day, fast for 24 hours. I was hungry. I was like, this is probably all bullshit. I'm going to have dinner and I'm going to go to bed. And it could have just ended there.
Mhm.
Where it gets crazy is the next day, I'm woken up for work by a coworker. And, you know, I'm sleeping. So the first thing I do when my phone goes off is I look at the time because why the fuck is somebody calling me? It said it was 7 something in the morning. My coworker is like, why are you late? Like, where are you? I'm due at work at like 9 something. The time on my iPhone was wrong.
Oh,
The
interesting.
time on my iPhone in 2017 was wrong. I screen capped it because I needed to show my coworker.
Right.
And immediately, I think you were told to fast by someone, even if it were yourself, and you completely just said, fuck you to that.
Yeah.
So I'm rushing to work. I'm on the subway. I can't shake this feeling that it is because I was given instructions and just completely ignored them. I get to work, I get in without my boss noticing me, and the day actually ends with me getting a raise, which was
Oh.
completely unexpected. And what I took away from that was one, this might be Apollo, which would be cool because I've
Mhm.
been so fixated on that. But whoever it was, what I walked away with was when I speak, listen.
Yeah.
And from there, it was just this running gallop to where I am now. Like I said, it's only been a few years.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the reasons you were like, oh, I feel bad for newcomers seeing the way things are on the internet. That was one of the reasons that I started Hiero. I was just seeing there was a lot of these bits of information everywhere, but because it's coming from an individual, it's very hard to verify something without poring over all of these books. And I'm just
Yeah.
seeing things that were very clearly misinformation, even to somebody who didn't know anything. I was just like, this just sounds not, it just doesn't fit with the rest of the worldview at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, that was the opening salvo that got everything really started for me was it was the sigil and having a new hand and then the iPhone, the time on my phone being wrong, but everything working out so perfectly.
Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely. Like that's almost like now at this point, because that was a few years ago now,
mhm.
you know that it was Apollo.
I say yes.
Okay.
It's
So it
yeah, yes. I'm one of those practitioners where I'm hesitant to say a hard yes to
yeah,
anything,
yeah,
but like yes.
yeah. So it sounds like, Apollo, you didn't follow his instructions.
Mhm.
Um, so what Apollo did that day was was like, if you follow my instructions, look what I can do with you for you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also look how what I can do if you don't listen.
Yeah. And it was a big,
Like,
I don't think since that day I have had a major nudge from my intuition that I
right.
haven't followed,
Yeah.
because it was just so out of the ordinary and so stark that I was like, okay, just go with it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's no reason to trip over your own shoelaces if you're getting a heads up. And I'm knocking on a wooden chair right now. I haven't tripped on my shoelaces
Yeah.
since. Yeah.
Well, I think we're given all it, provided we listen. I think we're given all the instructions and all the tools that we need to advance in our lives and our spirituality. Like Apollo was like, okay, well, do this,
Yeah.
and here's your reward, but don't do this, and look what I can do.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to oversimplify, and I don't want to sound like anything bad that happens to people is because
Yeah, totally.
to themselves. But I mean, like you're saying, like you haven't tripped over your shoelaces since. I think, in these sort of situations, that's more the spiritual situations. There's no need to. I mean, there's still some hard life lessons to learn.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you're given those messages and you trust your intuition, like there's no reason for you to go against your
Yeah.
intuition. I mean, because you already learned that lesson like right off the bat. So why would you continue with that pattern?
Yeah, and I'm someone who I do not like frustrating myself. And I think a huge part, and I talk about this in office hours all the time, I feel like a huge part of magic is being aware of the results and learning your lessons.
Yeah.
I talk about how I'm of the perspective that spells always work. We're just not seeing we have not widened our perspective enough or taken an objective enough view to see the results. And if we see something, I'm also a big proponent of, and we sometimes talk about in office hours, I'm like a pathological optimist. I don't think results that are quote unquote negative or are otherwise surprising aren't the spell working. You're
Right.
not at the finish line yet.
Yeah.
It's the hindsight is 2020 thing. You don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, and that I agree with. The idea that spells always work, it's just your perception of them that may lead you to believe that a spell hasn't worked. That I absolutely 100% don't agree with.
Okay. Yeah.
At all. Like that's I'm really open-minded with ideas and viewpoints and whatnot. And I pride myself really on being able to see, an opposite viewpoint and the the whole thought process behind an opposite viewpoint. That's why I like debating things and having discussions, because it's either going to solidify an opinion I have by debating the opposite side, or it's going to make me like, oh, I never considered that aspect of the opposite viewpoint. Let me explore that further. So I do pride myself on having that kind of mentality, but the idea that spells always work, I can't buy into that.
That may have been an overstatement. For me, it's more, I don't mean they always work. What I was more nudging toward was I don't think when you see the result of a spell and you package it as negative, that's maybe the end of the story. That's more what.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's not like I casted the thing for money and like, you just didn't look hard enough for the money if you didn't find it. That's not what I'm saying. It's more like I casted the thing for the money and I lost my job. That's not the end of the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this could be literally you being moved into another situation or even another perspective where you're able to see opportunities that you weren't able to that have been there for a while, that kind of
Right,
thing.
right, right, right. Yeah, okay. So that, yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But like casting a money spell and it's like, okay, well, the money came, it was just hidden under a bush in the next
Yeah,
town
no.
over. No, like that
No, that's not what I meant.
the
That's not
spell
what I
worked. Yeah,
meant.
no. Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying there. Yeah, because I mean, like I have had two major initiatory experiences.
Mhm,
One completely
mhm,
shattered me, and I realized what like an ugly person I was.
mm,
And I there's a and that was my first initiatory experience. There's definitely a pre-initiatory Sean and a post-initiatory. Like they're so
yeah,
different that if I ran into that person on the street, we would have nothing in common.
that's so funny you say
My
that. Yeah.
second experience
Mhm,
was like hitting a brick wall in a way, but and like everything fell apart. Like I was living in Texas, I was living in a completely different country
yeah.
for work because I used to move around a lot for work, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, guess who doesn't have a job? Oh, guess who has 12 days to leave the country or else he's technically an illegal alien. Um, but that led to me starting Lalo Gonzalez, which
Mhm.
even back then, back when I was in Texas, like, oh, I'd really like to do this. But I completely forgot that when I was in high school and I took entrepreneurship class in grade 10, the
Mhm.
business that I had, the pretend business that I had to build was
Mhm.
Lalo Gonzalez. And I didn't
Yeah.
remember that until after starting Lalo Gonzalez. And it's like, it took me over 20 years, over 20 years
I
um,
think
to get back to where I was when I was 15 and what I wanted to do
yeah.
as a career, you know?
It's
So that initiatory experience, people can look at that and be like, oh, well, that didn't work out well because I just lost my job and I have
mhm.
to leave the country that I'm living in. But it led to what I'm supposed to be doing,
It
you know?
was like course correction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I personally package the unexpected or negative results of a working or a spell is I'm just like I either do not have the distance to see this objectively
Mhm.
or I have a personally limiting perspective on what the outcome could look like or where
Yeah.
this unexpected thing can take me. I just think it's so interesting that you had this like business planned when you were 15.
15 years old, 15 years old. And
You're
it's funny because I can see it on paper. And I actually like I don't have like a Lalo Gonzalez store. Like that was never in the game plan for me.
yeah.
But in entrepreneurship class, because back then again, there was well, I mean, technically there was the internet back then. I'm not that old,
It was a
but
different
there
deal.
wasn't the way it is now.
Mhm.
So the idea of like, well, I can just start a website and these like uh two of no one of my distributors found me from my website, you know what I mean? So that was never that didn't exist back then. So back then it was a storefront, and I can literally close my eyes and I can see where I put the counters, where I put
Mhm.
the shelves, you know what I mean? Like it's so clear in my head.
Yeah.
But I had that was completely out of my head for these decades. And once this happened, I started seeing a pattern that I never noticed before
Mm.
in my career where I'd hit like a major high and I'm at the top of my game and something would knock me off my perch and I'd get knocked down a couple of rungs and I'd have to go back up. And it
Yeah.
was constant, like I always got to that last step where I'm like, I am um I'm at the top of my game. No one's better than me at this level.
Yeah.
So I'm about to step up to that top ultimate level. And right right as I'm lifting my foot to make that last step, I get knocked down and then have to do, and it's like I was this wasn't my life,
Yeah.
for the rest of my life. I needed these experiences.
Yeah.
But this was never going to be the rest of my life. And I didn't see that until that second initiatory experience.
It's so funny how the like kernels for the rest of our life are hidden in our childhood. It came up on Hiero recently. So I think that's so crazy that you started that when you were 15. And what I realized this week, I think it was in one of our forum events, people were talking about kind of the kernels of witchcraft in their childhood. And some people had magic things or artistic things, whatever they were doing. And what I realized is literally my whole life, I would like pull all the weirdos around me together into a group, name the group, and then like LARP as a community. Like
Okay.
the first one was in 5th grade. It was like the Freaks. It was just me and my friends, just whatever people I thought were weird or cool, and I'd gather them together and we'd create things and try to make like this community. And so it was very striking to me. I was like, oh, I am kind of doing that again.
Yeah.
And what I see in what you were telling is, well, what resonated for me is my journey with Hiero has been similar. Like now, it was like a few months ago where as I'm creating it, I saw how all of the jobs that I had were preparing me for what I was going to be doing. And
Right.
just like you, like I would get in, the trajectory was very quick as I'm like climbing up, and then I'd be very good. And then suddenly something would happen. Either usually the business like disappeared, like shuttered,
Okay.
or somebody who was over me would just leave and somebody new come in who we just did not gel, that kind of thing. And it
Yeah.
would like keep happening. And I would wind up in a completely new like field in the next job, and then
Right.
learn a bunch of things, and then something would happen. And all of the things, it was event planning, um, it was community building, it was emceeing, it was like, and my last job was at a school. I was working in an, was basically the point person in an after school program. So I knew where all the kids were and
Okay.
parents. And
Sounds like a nightmare.
it
I,
is,
I don't like kids.
I enjoyed the experience, but when I walked, well, I got like let go during COVID. What I'm noticing about Hiero, it's just what I was learning there was that herding cats.
Yeah. Mm.
And that has come in very handy because you're trying to get all these different people on the same page
Yeah.
about something. And that was kind of the icing on the cake. And what's interesting there with your story of like rising up and falling, that's where I had risen the highest. And it was my biggest fall. And that was just before I started.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you never like you never like, oh, I like, this tradition, da 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 da. I'm gonna study in this tradition. Are you, has it been like more of an eclectic path for
It's
you?
definitely been more eclectic for me. Like in the beginning, I read everything, and most of it was ripped PDFs. So I do not have like a shelf to look at to tell
Mm,
you all the things. But I
right, right.
I remember reading about, I was very interested, like I said, in ceremonial, but I went away from that. I spent a lot of time in chaos magic only because the way they were talking about things lined up with some of the conversations that happen in some of the new age circles, like just the perspective, obviously not all the details and
Right.
obviously workings and everything. But the concepts were easy for me to get. And then I was like, you're like, do I want to concentrate on herbs or um traditional aspects? Do I want to concentrate more on nature? And for me, what I realized was, and it was in office hours that helped me really see this, is I'm someone that works with energy.
Mm-hmm.
um, I've always done my own spells. In the beginning, like sometimes you're attracted to like those spell books and you try those.
Yep.
Other than the sigils, I've always kind of winged it. I'm a very, I guess you would call it, an intuitive practitioner. So yeah, I'm one of those people, I know a little bit about a lot of the things, but not super depth on one thing.
Right. Okay. Is the chaos magic community a lot more like conspiratorial, like crazy town,
I wouldn't
five,
say so.
like 5G caused COVID and the
No, 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 no,
vaccine,
no, no.
the
That
vaccine with the microchip. Like I feel like, and again, because I'm not involved in the chaos magic community, so I'm not,
Mhm.
I'm not like in there. I'm just seeing, the social media
Yeah. Mhm.
presence where
Mhm.
it seems like it's kind of gone a little off the rails. So of course you know, you try not to do this, but we're only human. So I see that I'm like, oh, well, the entire chaos community has just gone crazy, but it
Yeah.
just be these few more visible figures.
Yeah, so for me, I would not say that I am in that community, but what I can agree with you on is another thing that got me to start Hiero was, what I see more of that in is that new age, loosely spiritual corner of things.
Mm-hmm.
That was another reason that I started Hiero, was because just at least the corner of Instagram I was in, I
Oh,
was
the
like,
new agers have gone off the rails. I
everyone's gone crazy. And it's kind of like I was saying before, there were some things, I don't know everything, but I can, so many things just smell like misinformation. And I was
yeah,
like, there needs to be a place where people can go and learn about these things like seriously, and
yeah,
not just underneath an Instagram post, which is where most of the conversation is happening.
yeah,
Like Instagram, or not just in the replies on Twitter.
yeah.
So like,
That-
I started Hiero for my own practice. And what's interesting is now I'm super busy, so I don't have the time to sit down and dive into all the things that I'm learning. I know
yeah.
that will come eventually. But that's one of the things that I'm kind of going through now, is like, I know so much more than I did a year ago.
Yeah.
I don't really have the time to sit down and like develop any of it like personally.
No, I mean you just got to take it one day at a time and
Mhm.
and bit by bit. And I mean I think we have a bad habit of um seeing a finish line,
Yes. Yeah.
and there is no finish line. Even if you're in a tradition that has 3 degrees, 3 initiations, you do those 3 initiations, that's not a finish
Yeah.
line,
Yeah.
because and I mean if that is a finish line to you, I kind of feel
Yeah.
sorry for you
Yeah.
if you feel like you're done. I did
Mhm.
my 3 degrees, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
oh, so sorry, because there is no finish line. There's no being done.
Yeah. There's so much, there's
No.
literally always more to learn, another
Yeah.
perspective to
Yeah.
it.
So you just take it one day at a time, and you learn this, you learn that, and eventually it all comes together, and one day you realize, when I moved back to Canada, and I met this guy at my friend's metaphysical store here in town,
Mhm.
and chatting, blah blah blah. Oh, we're both pagan. Oh, let's start doing rituals together. And then this person and that person. So we ended up, so I now have a group, and we're all
Mhm.
very different, and
Yeah.
uh, a ragtag group of us, and when we get together for like the Sabbats and whatnot, and you don't realize when you're just doing your thing and learning and whatever, that's great. And you put it all together and you have like a working practice, blah, 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 blah. And and you don't really think too much of it. And then I'm in like this situation with this group and people ask me questions and question about this, question about that, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, I'm the one with the answers?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That
Yeah. You're
can't
like,
be
how did that
right.
happen?
That can't be right. When did that happen?
Yeah, that's something that I just I'm loving the amount of learning. What I try to do is not get, like you were saying, it's one day at a time. I try to not get too down on myself, and also keep in mind, like, Hiero is a working. Like,
Yeah.
it has been my most successful magical working. I literally pour all of my energy
Yeah.
into it, and it doesn't, like, Wade, who's a Hiero member, for those who are listening, says all the time, it's like, you would not look at my practice and assume that I'm doing anything wild.
Yeah.
But like, one of the things that made me see how far I've come was really the tumult of like 2020 and being inside all the time. And I feel like a lot of people, if they chose to, well, one of the ways they used that extra time was to enhance their practice. I found it very beneficial to me, and just the amount that I've been able to do and accomplish with less, I
Mhm.
wouldn't have been able to do it before. And I
Right.
have to
Right.
look at that and be like, well, that is your proficiency increasing. You are turning your will towards something, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
working. And I just have to remind myself, because there could be a big thing also with, not everyone, a lot of people experience some imposter syndrome. And I go through that a lot with Hiero, because like I said, and I'm very open with it, I haven't been practicing for 40 years.
Yeah.
I'm a relative newcomer. I'm still definitely in the upward learning phase. I'm not even at the like plateauing kind of, all right, I feel good about everything I've learned phase. And it's interesting, like, balancing that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a leader, not an expert. I'm
Yeah.
just here making this.
But what I think is good about that when it comes to Hyro is because I you're this is your word, a beginner. You're not curating the information
Yeah.
that's going on Hyro to fit
Mm-hmm.
your viewpoint and perceptions and whatnot. you know um you're you're letting it all come out and it's there, and
Cross
people and
pollinate.
people yeah, and people can assimilate it as needed and whatnot. So there's a certain benefit, I think, to you running Hyro and not being set in your ways
Yeah.
magically. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I woke up one day and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna create Hyro, the occult social club, I I'm fairly certain it would be very tightly, not tightly controlled, like in a controlling manner, but
Yeah. Yeah.
this is what I want on there. This
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
what I don't want on there.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like
No, I completely
it would be curated in not a good way. Like keep the crap out is good, but so that curated that way is good, but curated in a bad way, like, oh, I'm not really into um chaos magic,
Yeah.
so no, so there's no office
None of
hours
that. None
days.
of that here.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
could see myself doing that, just because I have a more narrow viewpoint on magic because I've been doing it for so long and I
Yeah.
have my practice. I'm not saying that I'm not open to new ideas. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, and I'm sure
Yeah,
everyone that's listening right now gets what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah,
You
I
know,
get it too,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
And yeah, I started this largely for my own practice. I couldn't find, like I was saying, I couldn't find a place that was doing what I wanted. I wanted to have deep, meaningful, substantive conversations about these things where I can learn from people who knew, or even just bat around ideas with people who don't,
yeah.
and not have it be about the flashiest hot take or the most
Hmm.
pleasing image or snappy comment. I just really wanted it to be a place of a multidisciplinary place where people, this cross pollination of ideas
Yeah,
and
yeah,
perspectives. And, you know, like I always say, and I'm happy about it, like we're not a consensus
yeah,
community.
yeah.
It's not about us agreeing with each other. It's about you stating what you have learned and experienced up until that point. People are free to cock an eye or disagree or even vociferously disagree.
Mhm.
Just keep it respectful, which
Yeah.
is, you know, something that's
I
important.
can't believe I'm genuinely shocked because we have what 1,000 members now.
Mm-hmm.
That there's zero drama. There's zero drama in there, and I can't believe it. And I'm so thankful that I found Hiero because one thing I miss are forums.
Yeah.
Because with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, it's easier access, it's quicker and da 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 da
Yeah.
da. And forums kind of died out. And what also died out was, in my opinion, serious discussion.
Yeah.
And I looked for that on Twitter, and
Mm-mm,
it's
mm-mm.
not there.
No.
It's just absolutely not there. So yeah, so when I discovered Hiero, it's like, sign me up. Absolutely sign me up.
That makes me just so good to hear, and also so good that you're enjoying, and also it's very present to you how little drama there is there. I think not only is it like, you know, the intention that's been put into the whole thing, you know, like I said, it's like a magical working in its own way, but I think also the fact that I am a part of the community and not just a founder in an office. It gives a little bit of like the principal is walking in the hallways vibe,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
where people are less apt to just go off because they can, because I could very easily just be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And we haven't had any, I haven't had to do that yet. You know, it's not always sunshine there. We've had plenty of disagreements, like I said, and people disagreeing rather passionately with each other, but
If it
there's,
was all sunshine, it would be so
it
boring.
would be so boring.
It
Yeah.
really would,
Everybody's
and
learning, because that means we're all disagreeing and it's an echo chamber.
yeah,
And we don't want an echo chamber.
yeah,
You don't have to like someone else's practice at all. You do have to respect it, and just respect that they have it.
yeah,
And if it's working for them, let it work for them. I
yeah.
think that's a big thing that we talk about in office hours too, since we're batting around a lot of ideas and agreeing and disagreeing. Like at the end of the day, and this is a little bit of that chaos magic perspective, like if it's working, it's working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I say this a lot when it comes to social media, like, and you talking about, you don't have to like someone's practice, but you have to respect, and if it works for them, it works for them. Like,
Yeah.
it's, I don't care what you do. Like, I'm too busy doing the work to criticize, to go on social media for the express purpose of criticizing you for your work,
It just makes no sense.
viewpoints. You know what I mean? I'm too busy. I'm doing the work.
Like, you know, like
You can talk about the work. You can troll all the social media sites criticizing people. Have at it. But I'm too busy because
much,
I'm doing it.
and like reaping the benefits of like doing the work and not
Yeah.
just talking about things. And like part of it is again, the way that the algorithms are set up in these places and like what gets people's attention, but you would just think that people would want to be more helpful.
Yeah.
Like there isn't a scarcity on magic, you know, like it's not running out. It's not like you have to keep people out. And that's why, you know, it's very important to me to, one of the things on Hiero is no gatekeeping. Like, again, disagree, but like you can't, we respect closed practices, obviously, but it's not about keeping people out of magic. It's not about berating them away from it. You can intervene, course correct, enlighten, illuminate. Like it doesn't need to be a fight or
Yeah,
waste.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, some of the people that I follow on social media, like I'm just going to say Twitter, because that's a good example. Some of the people that I follow on Twitter, um, some really, really, really good voices in the magical community, pagan community, spiritual community, whatever, metaphysical community, however you want to define it. Um, and then people that aren't on social media because they can't be bothered with the drama, like
Yeah.
valuable, you know, there's so many valuable voices
Mm-hmm.
on Twitter that could be spending some time, you know, with a little, you know, nugget of knowledge tweet, and you know what I mean, and set
Mm-hmm.
off a really great discussion
Yeah.
and inspire people, and they don't do it because what's the point?
Yeah.
If I said, I'm Eastern Standard Time, so if I said it's 10:27 p.m. right now,
Mhm.
if I type that on Twitter, I would be um excluding people. I would be excluding people in other time zones. I would be discriminating against children that are too young to tell time on a clock, and I'm the worst person in the world. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter what you put on Twitter
Mhm.
or Facebook is oh
I
I
don't, I
Facebook is just
literally don't.
terrible.
Opening it gives me anxiety. I go
Yeah,
there for very
yeah,
specific things when I need to, and then I like run out the door as
yeah.
quickly as possible, which is
Um,
so weird because I used to be like Facebook queen.
yeah, I've spent more time on Facebook these past 2 weeks than I have in probably the past year and a half, only because with having this new podcast,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
you know, I've been promoting it. But yeah, you put anything you put on social media, you're going to get attacked for it. And it's just why bother? So there's so many amazing voices that can be doing so much good, and all of these people that you know, and all these people that attack and try to police you and blah 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 blah. They're not even claiming that they're experts
yeah,
and whatnot. You know, they're people. Oh, that like they openly, you know, talk about, you know, learning and blah 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 blah. They're and they only have themselves to blame. They're losing out on some amazing like interactions. You know,
yeah.
if you let these great voices speak on social media
Mm-hmm.
and you want to learn something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for free,
For free.
you know, comment on that post. I don't understand what you're saying. Is there, can you possibly explain it a little in
Well, the
simpler
thing is
terms
also
to me, as opposed to be like, I don't agree with this, therefore you're horrible and canceled.
yeah.
Okay, go back to your cartwheel manifestations then. And like, you know, and
Well,
I just, yeah, so that's why I'm glad Hyro exists, because none of that, just none of that occurs there.
I think part of it is also it's not only are those conversations, is there no payoff to have them in those spaces because of the algorithm, like it literally just goes nowhere.
Yeah,
But we do have to at least in the magical community, we do need to acknowledge that it's not often the most welcoming space in which to ask questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So pile that tendency, if you want to call it that, with the tendency of Twitter to reward bad behavior, and you get noise. You get like no one like essentially actually like learning anything. And I think kind of what we're seeing now that we are definitely not in the twilight, but we've seen social media, at least the way we know it, reach its peak, and now we're reevaluating it, is things like Hiero, different spaces for different types of communicators about different things. Because there are on Twitter plenty of people who are very educated and happy and eager to educate about magic, but just because of the venue, you know, it's just not super effective and maybe actually quite frustrating. And
I just had an idea.
I
just had an idea. I'm not going to say it on while we're recording. I'll wait till we're done recording.
Cool.
But
I love ideas. And I love the energy you got. So you put.
I just got really excited.
I was gonna say it relates to real life, right? Like if you are in Grand Central Station trying to teach people about something serious, you're going to wind up frustrated with the majority of people just walking past you. The few people that stop telling you to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if you were just throwing a fit in Grand Central Station, you have an audience.
Yeah. That's a really good analogy, actually. Yeah. You wouldn't
have the same problem in the library. It's about venue.
Yeah.
And I think we're at a place with social media. It was billed to us as a place to create community. And that's what we were very excited about in the beginning. What we are finding is it may not, well, not may not, it is not conducive to building, what word do I want to use here? Like fulfilling, lasting community. You can gather around a certain topic or gather around an influencer, but what connections are being made between people?
Yeah.
That's what I really wanted and thirsted for. Like I wanted to talk about these things, and you know, I wanted friends.
Yeah.
I wanted to speak with people. I wanted to get to know them, what makes them tick, what makes their practice work. And I think I was like, I know I'm not alone in this. I know there are people.
Just don't use that as Hiero's tagline. Hiero, because I have no friends.
No,
I'm just teasing.
Like that's just like in the sausage, right? As I'm sitting around, I'm in New York. There's tons of things going on and lots available to me, but all of the places that I look to talk about these things or groups to join, not only, and this is another conversation, not only did no one look like me,
right? Yeah.
But even if I were a different person and looked like the group, if I were who I am, it still didn't, the vibe wasn't right. And I've never been the type of person.
Like you're talking about your eye color, right? Of course.
Yeah. I'm talking about my eye color and my beautiful blonde hair.
Yeah.
I've never been the type of person to force a relationship based on identity.
Right.
So I wasn't going to join these groups or stay in a place where it was just not vibing.
Yeah.
Because like I just wasn't that desperate to talk about it with people.
Right. Yeah.
And the moment I did become that desperate to talk about it with people, I was like, I have to just do it myself then, because it's just not. And the other thing that I saw and that inspired all this was those, because of the way social media has developed, even if you are a great educator or have a great idea, even if it's a product or something, or in the case of social media, an idea for a club, everyone's brain runs to building like a personal brand.
Yep.
Which is something I didn't want to do. Like, I'm super happy to be doing this podcast with you. You're in Hiero. I know you. We've spoken. I'm super happy to be talking with you. Do I want to spend my time beating down the door of podcasts of people that I absolutely don't know? They weren't recommended to me just because, I'm trying to maintain this personal brand. I don't want to do that. There is nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
That way of structuring my life seems very stressful to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was looking to build something for, just like people who were in the same spot as me.
Yeah. That's interesting because I never would have thought, and of course, this relates to the color of my skin. I never would have thought that something like this was created because you didn't have people like you're saying, like I walk into these groups and I'm the only Black person.
Yeah.
And and that's why I'm saying, like, because of the color of my skin, I would never even have thought that something like this would get birthed out of that sort of experience.
Yeah.
Because I don't have those experiences, which then made me realize that I don't think a white person could have started Hiero.
And why do you think that? Just because of that,
Going back to what I was saying, like if I were to start Hiero, and I was basing off, like, because I have 27 years of experience in the magical world, I have a bit more of a narrow view of what I want to see and what I want to create. But it's also, I think, to being a white person, because we don't take the backseat to anything.
Yeah.
Because we're not raised to take
not conditioned that way.
I was talking about this in my conversation with Bob Freeman for his episode of the LVX Files. We exist in a world where we're in the driver's seat, and we're raised to be in the driver's seat. So we can't help ourselves, white people, to be like, well, this is mine. Because I'm the one that's paying for this website and this is my idea. So you know what I mean? So like, I'm not into chaos magic. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? I honestly don't think Hiero would be what it is or could survive the way it is right now. If there was a white person behind it, it would eventually fall apart. I like that is almost a guarantee that it would start falling apart, because there would be that the power plays and well, this is mine, and you know what I mean?
No, I do know what you mean. I've spent a lot of time working at startups. That's why, I would rise and the business would disappear, kind of thing. And in doing Hiero, and that it speaks to that point, I wanted to stay away from so many of the things that I saw.
Yeah.
And that like me thing was something I wanted to not only stay away from, but I had naturally, and this goes back to our kind of conversation about like the nuggets, I've naturally come into a place where I no longer want that attention.
Right.
I did that. Brenndon, before the crash of 2014, would have reveled in it. I did start another company in 2013, which kind of contributed to the breakup. It was called Couples Consolidated. It was a date itinerary planning service.
Okay.
Because, everyone's on OkCupid and you're trying to come up with all these dates and all these things. It was a few years ago, so there weren't as many outlets.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we'll make the dates. But that was we were in an age before the personal brand. It was like about to start. Instagram was still very early, but I wanted, like, I would have loved attention. Like Couples Consolidated actually got a write-up in like the New York Post, and I spoke
Okay.
in Seacrest on the radio. I loved doing all those
Yeah.
things. I have very intentional thoughts about Hiero now where I'm like, if people came knocking on my door, like I don't, not that I don't want the knocking in the door, I don't even want to be the person doing it. Like I
Right.
literally ask the community, does someone else want to do this? Like I'm not, and I'm very, it's a blessing to have come into that place
Yeah.
just as all of this was starting. Cause like you were saying, I don't think it would be able to survive if I were in this to want to push me or to create something that looked a certain way and stayed looking a certain way, all
Yeah.
of those things, I think it would just not work.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create a place that was intentionally diverse beyond opinion. You know,
Right.
we've spoken about that a lot, but I just wanted it to be because you know, I'm not the only one, the person of color in the magical space who looks around and it's like, where do I go?
Right.
And especially it's a smaller triangle of that longer triangle is practitioners of color who are practicing things outside of what you would assume is their culture by looking at them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're going to these other spaces, like as someone who works with Apollo, you know, going to a Hellenist space looks, feels a certain way.
Yeah.
A lot of pagan groups, at least in real life, up until COVID. I don't know what things are going to look like moving forward. We've had a huge just change
Yeah.
in the world in our conversations, but you know, it was all the same. And I just didn't want, I wanted everything. Like, I'm curious. Like, I
Yeah.
just wanted everything. I want to know about everything. That's why you have all of those fucking topics. Like, I just want to know. Some of them, I'm not super interested in them. But
Yeah.
if you want to just tell me about, like, I'm not going to go to a book and read about it. But if you're going to tell me about these things and share with me, I am so down to talk about it. And I love one of my favorite things about doing the office hours when I'm co-hosting them is to make those connections. I love pulling in a theme from a past office hours and applying it to something someone just said.
Yeah.
I love pulling a quote or an idea from someone whose practice is very different and relating it to something that was just said, because I feel like that's where the synergy and value is in communing around a practice,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
in those exchanges. We talk a lot in office hours, excuse me, about how, you know, magic and spirituality, they're living things, they change, they're dynamic.
Yeah.
So if we're in this echo chamber of ideas where things become almost dogmatic, like dogma is dead, it does not move, it does not change.
Yeah.
And so like one of the potentials that I love, one of the things we do at Hiero and the potential that I see to grow is the community coming together to discuss things, one, in ways that we haven't discussed, and also approach topics that concern the wider magical community, but there's no place for us to work them out.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
love creating that ground. We had a really interesting discussion in an office hours about how we feel about people throwing around the word shamanism
Mm-hmm.
or identifying as a shaman. And I'm not going to make any disparaging comments about anybody here, but the general consensus was we're all iffy, you know, knowing what we know, having educated ourselves about the origins of the word and the practice and what that really means. And those are conversations that we can have about any number of things that are developing conversations in the wider community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not, like I said, we're not a consensus community. We're rarely coming to consensus, but we can all walk away with a more nuanced view on something. Like very recently, whenever Shinto would come up in an office hours, the perspective was it is a closed practice.
No.
No one knew enough to challenge that at all until recently. Someone was in an office hours and was like, actually, no. And that completely changed Wade's practice.
Right.
there is now a whole deity that Wade has wanted to work with that
Yeah.
they can now, explore, because
Yeah.
someone completely opened something up for him that they thought was completely closed for them.
You'll never meet anyone who's actually a Shinto practitioner that's like, oh no, this system's closed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's no, it's not. You know, it's there are closed practices. Yes, we all know that.
Yeah.
But if you are trying to, you want to start close like making practices closed just to make you feel better because you're
You know
potato.
that tarot is closed.
Yeah. You want to make yourself feel better by closing all these practices just because you're a potato face. Um, no, that's no, sorry. So, no, I mean it's just tarot's close. You know what drives me crazy about the whole tarot's close practice is not the fact that um tarot was invented in Italy. And I'm gonna say this right now. Anything coming out of white Europeans is not closed. I don't care what
That
it is. If it comes from whitey, it's all yours. It's
that is
wide open.
something I've said a few times on the feed. I'm like, if it comes from a culture that was intentionally evangelist, and that is not necessarily with their religion, but with their culture, they
Yeah,
really literally took other places over to expand their
yeah,
culture, then it cannot be closed.
no,
They wanted other people involved.
yeah. Um, so it's not that because that right there just makes it sound ridiculous. It's the fact that the stereotype of the tarot reading gypsy
Yeah,
is culturally offensive,
is
and
offensive.
and that that image of the tarot card reading gypsy comes out of 19th century French literature. So you have all these white people, and this is going back to what I said, like white people won't take a backseat to anything, not even like BLM. Like I'm like, no, 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 Brenndon, you sit this one out. I got
I've
this.
got it. I've got it.
I got BLM. I'll just take over now. And that's literally what they're doing. It's like no, there's no um uh um Romani
Yeah.
Romani people saying, "Oh, tarot's closed, it's ours." You know what I mean? It's white people, and it's like you got to stop. You got to stop. I don't. You're not. No black person is looking at you saying this and being like, "Oh, okay, no, they're one of the good white people."
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, whew. Oh, that's
Yeah.
relief. That's not what these people are.
You're not getting like tokens for
You're
first
not
of all not listening.
no, you're not getting brownie points. Like it's no person of color is looking at you when you're making these claims being like, oh, they're one of the good one, they're one of us, they're one of us.
No.
No,
No.
that's not what's happening.
Allyship is like not a tweet. It's also not like we were like, it's not ignoring the voices of the people.
Yeah.
Like how many tweets, posts on Instagram, on all of the things have Roma people said, stop associating me with this one thing. Like,
But you never see those posts, not because they don't exist, because they're not the ones getting
yeah,
retweeted and commented on. The algorithm, they're just
yeah,
disappearing. It's these crazy ass tarot's a closed practice. It belongs to the Romani people. Those are the tweets and the Instagram posts that blow up and get 5,000 likes and 2,000 retweets, and the Romani are completely voiceless and invisible in this discussion. And that's why you're saying like you don't know post COVID how things are going to change. I have my doubts because last year when all of the BLM protests were going on and
mhm,
everyone in occult social media hashtag BLM, let's amplify black voices, black creators, drop your websites here, blah 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 blah. And then oh, come to my virtual convention with all of these amazing white
Yeah,
presenters,
yeah,
or with these 24 white presenters and this one black guy.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So now, because black voices have, especially in the magic community, have really been silenced.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of people to, oh, let's ask him, let's ask
yeah,
her. You know what I mean? Because they're almost invisible.
yeah.
So I don't know if it could have been a big change so quickly, like all of these conventions last year. I don't know. Let's give people the benefit of a doubt. Let's
Yeah.
see what happens over
I
the
think
next couple of years.
I think with things like well, we'll see if people put their money where their mouth is, right?
Yeah,
Convention season is
but I'm
coming.
not
I'm
seeing
not
it.
aware of I'm not aware of all the ones that are coming out, so I don't know what the lineups are like. But like we can say at least for 2020, those were planned probably before the summer. Maybe some of them. You're like, no, no. I'm just trying to get benefit of the doubt. But I don't think one, it definitely won't be a sea change.
No,
But
no.
just because two things happened at once, you have enough people sensitive, or at least more sensitive, that might be up from zero sensitivity to
Yeah,
what their spaces look like, combined with this pagan slash magical slash general esotericism renaissance that we're seeing. More people are going to be interested in these
yeah,
things. They're coming. The people who are running them are maybe one tick more sensitive than they were before and can make pivots. I
yeah,
hope that's a developing thing. I don't think, just like with most things, it won't be able to stay all white spaces for very much longer. The
yeah,
cat is out of the bag with this community. The renaissance is happening. It's moving. It's not just going to suddenly poof,
yeah,
and it's affecting all communities. And you could see that on Hiero. We have people from Japan, like
yeah.
literally all over the world. So it's only a matter of time. Again, will I even see these changes personally? Probably not, because I'll be doing things with Hiero. But the assumption is, I'm assuming, just because of the contours of the situation, it's kind of inevitable.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is inevitable, but I'm thinking like come 2022,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these conventions are still like, well,
Yeah,
we have that one black presenter out of 25 or 30, or zero black presenters. I think by 2022, you kind of got to think it's deliberate. Because
yeah,
because I mean, 2020, and the conventions that happened in 2020, after the big the bulk of the BLM, like the real
yeah. The summer.
insane, like
Yeah,
spring summer, um I, you could say that it was too soon. Like the ones happening in the fall were too soon to
yeah,
really shift direction. And plus with COVID, and things are complicated, and so even with 2021, but I think 2022 things are going to be relatively back to normal.
I agree.
That I think if if the absence of black voices are going to be very conspicuous, or like just people of color are going to it's going to start being very conspicuous. And I think at a certain point it's like, well, you just got to assume it's deliberate.
Yeah, and it will be deliberate in many
Yeah,
cases.
yeah, I think.
Um, and that's another thing where like super and like Wade, he's like number one. Well, they are number one Nazi puncher.
Yeah,
Like we because of how we are deciding to talk about ourselves, we are calling people whose allyship tends to be more than just a tweet or a comment,
mhm,
because it's important to them. The idea of building something where everyone is able to be and practice and be celebrated and have their identities respected, however that may be.
Yeah.
You know, like intentionally creating essentially like a social media oasis. Like
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite thing to hear about Hiero is the people who are like, I have social anxiety on social media. I never participate. I feel safe participating here, going to office hours. I literally don't do these things because it's like an oasis or it
Mhm.
feels like coming home. All these things that are just so necessary because part of this whole thing with magic is an element of it is like healing.
Yep. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I didn't expect to cultivate a space where people like healed in that way. I'm glad that it's developing that way, but all of these things that we're talking about just point toward the fact that the people in our community do not exist in a bubble. And I
Oh,
mean,
I just saw your
oh,
what?
about drinking of water.
Yeah. Okay, I'll hit pause because I need to refresh my. You can just say, you don't have to, because I just noticed the chat bubble now because I'm on full
No,
screen.
it's fine. I just said that like a minute or two ago because I was like, we're in
Okay.
a good swing of conversation. I don't want to just be like,
No,
oh,
no, no. Like I said to you before we start recording, if you need me to stop, it's no big
okay,
deal.
let me write
Uh,
down what I was thinking if I can remember.
okay.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm gonna hit pause. Okay. Okay, we're back.
Yeah, so yeah, what I was saying was I think all of this, what we were talking about, points toward the fact that our community doesn't exist in a bubble. And by that I meant by and large, people are like solitary practitioners,
Hmm.
right? But we still need connection, just like any other community.
Yeah,
And we can be solitary, but together. And
absolutely.
it's very missing. Like the occult community exists in the scraps of like every social media like network and website. There's like an occult corner somewhere of people doing what they do. But again, like I said, it's existing on scraps. Like it's very hard to cobble together meaningful relationships on a forum where people may post once a month or in the comments, because especially because we're in a place, social media is so crazy, it's kind of dicey sliding into somebody's DMs. A lot of people don't like that, and you may
Yeah,
just like a genuine conversation. There's just nowhere for it.
yeah.
I
No,
feel
it's true. It's true. You know, I have, like I said, I have my group and we come together for ritual and whatnot. But magic and spirituality, like it is a solitary practice. You know, you develop it alone by and large. But that sense of community and needing those voices and the diversity, but also the not similarities, but the people that think like you
yeah,
and practice
like-minded.
like
Yeah.
you, and you know you want both. You need both, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, you completely do. And yeah, that's what I was looking for. And here we are. You know, I
Yeah.
found I've met so many truly like awe-inspiring practitioners, and the depth of knowledge is great. All of the hosts are like so talented. All of
Mhm.
the articles that I feel so grateful to get to just, have a first row seat to all of these practitioners. Like I'm watching some of them blossom on other social media because they found new confidence, or they're in a new hit a new stride in their practice, and they're branching out to do more things and starting services and podcasts, and it's just so rewarding and like exceeds it, like meets what I wanted, because I'm meeting people and having meaningful conversation, but in so many ways it wildly exceeds my expectations. And I know so much of that, to tie it back to the beginning of our conversation, is following those nudges. When I get a message from Apollo, or more recently I started working with Zeus.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was Hiero related actually, and this comes up sometimes in office hours. One night I was just talking to a member. I forget what we were even talking about at the time, but I was talking to them, and I said I felt there was a new presence in the room. You know, sometimes you're like, there's someone here, but like it feels familiar. There was a new presence, and I was telling them about it, and all of a sudden I'm getting flashes of eagles.
Okay.
And hearing this like booming laughter. And I'm like, is this, first of all, I'm always a little, I go in skeptical just to
Yeah.
make sure, you know, you want to check yourself. And I was like, this isn't Zeus. And then the eagles kept coming, and I'm hearing the like whatever I'm seeing. And I'm like, okay, fine, but like I'm not really interested in, you have a bad profile at this point, not really interested in working with you. And as I'm talking, who I was talking to was also picking up on whatever conversation I was having with whatever was in the room.
Okay.
They're sensitive. And I was getting the feeling that, how do I phrase this? The question that came to my mind as I'm sitting here, like clearing myself and all of that in that situation, was I got the feeling that this presence, that at the time I was unsure it was Zeus or whatever, was not upset, but confused about the level of adoration they were receiving because of this new place that we're in with the pagan renaissance. It's like
Right.
back, people are celebrating the gods. It was a little what about me kind of feeling. And I'm talking to my friend, and I was like, I'm not really interested in like rehabbing this. That's too much. I'm an individual, first of all. This sounds ridiculous. Conversation went back and forth for a while. But it started an interesting conversation on Hiero that we have like continually, which is, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay.
You are a very experienced practitioner. The changing nature of deity. So in that conversation with, again, I always preface it with what I assumed to be Zeus, it was kind of like these myths were written. I understand the world has changed. People are very not into working with Zeus because, you know, he's a fuck boy, problematic. I'm not really into this. And it was this feeling, what I kept
So
hearing.
you're not into like the daddy types. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I kept hearing was Hera era. And I was like, do you mean like me too? And it was like, yeah, like things have changed. I'm not only what is in these myths. There is more to me. I haven't been in a vacuum. I'm not coming down and, you know. So I just wanted to, we batted this around and had a good conversation, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on things like that. Just the idea that the deities are not frozen in time.
Well, and they're not. I mean, if deities were frozen in time, then practices would be frozen in time. And I'm not a reconstructionist, a Celtic
Yeah.
reconstructionist, or an Egyptian
Mhm.
reconstructionist, because those practices were for
the
for
time.
those time periods. The thing about myths, and it's funny, and again, this is something else to see on Zeus is canceled.
Mhm.
The whole,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
rape thing. Like, it's weird that you guys are like, well, the Jesus myth isn't real, but the Zeus
yeah, yeah,
are
yeah,
like
yeah,
Zeus really walked the earth, and like, no,
yeah.
that's not, you know, these myths, like, sticking with Zeus, do they say more about Zeus or about
Or the people who
the
wrote them.
people and the culture and the
Mhm.
time period within that culture that wrote
Yeah.
them? Because ultimately it was people that wrote
Mhm.
them. Whether they were divinely inspired or
Or
not
not.
is
They came
does
through.
doesn't matter. Now the thing is when I look at creation myths or myths about any deity, um and uh Isis and Osiris is a good one. Osiris is killed by his brother
Mhm.
Set. He chops him up, scatters
Yep.
his pieces of his body across Egypt, and Isis goes, collects the pieces. She can't find his penis.
Yeah.
So she puts it back together and gives him a penis, a phallus, brings him back to life. Well, that never happened
Yeah.
because you can't chop up someone and put them back together and they come back to life. Now, if this happened in the astral realm, the realm of thought and ideas and the creative potential, and then when Osiris died, where did he go?
Yeah.
Did he come to Earth? So flipping
Oh.
around the myth a little bit, because we always say we're spiritual people trapped in a physical body. So if our higher self that exists in the astral is our true self,
Yeah.
then every time the truth self dies, that's when we incarnate
Ooh.
on Earth. Okay.
Uh,
So Osiris, this wasn't some crazy magic that we don't have access to anymore on Earth. Osiris, his true self, died. He incarnated on Earth. And when he died on Earth, he returned to his higher self. So if you flip the mythology
the perspective, yeah.
around, so now you have now, but here's the thing, I'm trying to think why the whole rape narrative with Zeus. So Zeus is running around Earth raping these women. So it's not on Earth, it's in, the astral realm, and this being is created, that be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um Narcissist didn't actually turn into a flower on Earth, but the spirit of the narcissist flower, we're telling the myth of the spirit of the narcissist flower, not about a person
Yeah.
that turned into a flower, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how, the narcissist flower came into being, this its spirit, you know
Mhm.
so the whole rape mythology thing, I'm still trying to figure out that why that's relevant, or if it's relevant, and I don't know if it is relevant.
I don't think it is relevant. I think it's relevant in as far as, so it's only relevant in as far as the real world actions people take with that particular take. So yeah, kind of wrapping back, that feeling that I was getting from whatever interaction, mental, wherever it was happening, was like I was top dog.
Mm.
Now this narrative has changed and people are worshiping again. And it's like everyone but me kind of thing. I don't think that is, like I said, I don't think it's an actual relevant thing people should be concerned with because I have the same views about myth as you.
Well, I don't think you even need to be concerned with it. I mean, you can still acknowledge that rape narrative, but if you put mythology into its proper context,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not Zeus. It's not a Me Too
Yeah.
moment. It's not Zeus running around raping women because
Mm-hmm.
this is mythology. I can't. I mean, I haven't given this a whole ton of thought.
Uh-huh.
Maybe at a certain point, because I'll think about it every once in a while here and there. Maybe collectively, all those random moments will coalesce and I'll have a ding, ding, ding moment about why possibly the
Mm-hmm.
the rape element is part of these myths.
Yeah. I see what
Um,
you mean.
yeah. So so I look at mythology as I mean mythology is just a way like 4,000 years ago we didn't really have a concept of um the universe as it is,
Yeah. As
uh,
it just
evolution,
yeah.
stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, stars exploding and creating new planets and et cetera, et cetera. So, but people are naturally curious and people ask questions and people want answers. So you come up with these concepts to explain the natural world. So so you can't change myths. You can't
Yeah.
you can't just go back and oh the new Zeus mythology is
Yeah,
this.
that's not what I was. No,
No,
yeah.
but you can build on it. You can create new mythology and and through new interactions with
Yeah.
deities. So deities aren't frozen in stone. And if you take the idea of deities, part part of their ability to exist is through the acknowledgement and worship of human beings,
Exactly.
then if that's the case, then creating new mythology, creating a new narrative to work on. And I'm not going so far as to say, okay, well, now Zeus is a
Yeah.
uh
A completely different energy.
Zeus is a twink,
No,
who
no.
is the patron god of
Mm-mm.
red boys. I'm not like I'm it's not rewriting
Yeah,
everything. It's
no.
just I'm working with a Zeus that isn't running around um representing toxic masculinity.
And
So, you're creating a new narrative um within reason. Um so if the idea that gods exist because we acknowledge them and work with them and worship them, then by extension you can redefine um their mythology.
that was the whole tenor of whatever interaction I had. And it wasn't so much like we were saying, like that should not be relevant, but it's relevant in as much as how many people are working with Zeus,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I was kind of like, I'm not interested in rehabbing this whole thing. We negotiated and came up with some terms. And it's not me writing new myth because I don't think that's just not my wheelhouse. I was like, I don't have the time for all these things. But what came out of that was one of the things that the person I was talking with at the time, and she was picking up and she's like, I just heard, well, why do you think that we gave you Hiero?
Mm,
And it was part of this realization for me that not only was I creating this space to talk about magic, etc., but I was creating a space where possibly, I hate saying things like this, possibly the first time, maybe just the first time in a long time, the gods in general can be celebrated in one place by all people.
Right.
Again, that first time thing, I'm sure there are other examples. I hate saying first time, but it was the feeling of this is something new for where we're at least.
Well,
It has
God,
been a very long time since,
yeah,
rather, I guess is a good way to go about it, where people can really come and talk about their relationship with deities, celebrate those relationships, learn about new relationships, make new relationships. Um, and that was kind of like what I saw and like the weight that fell upon me. And I felt very, it just like increased the amount of responsibility I felt in the whole
yeah,
endeavor. You know what I mean? Because I think that is so important, because this is a spirituality that a lot of people are revisiting, or we're revisiting as a culture. And there needs to be places to at least convene, if not literally go and worship in the way that we think about it. Because again, you know, we have very Christian notions of what it means to behave religiously.
yeah. You know, gods need worlds to exist.
Mhm.
You created a world with Hiero.
Yeah.
Just because it's not a rocky planet, I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Wow. I never thought about that
we
before.
we exist in a digital age where
Mhm.
there's worlds that exist online, pure energy,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and so it's a new world for the gods to exist in.
That is such an interesting take. I'm loving this little like mini office hours we're having.
Yay.
Such an interesting take, because if you think about, like you were saying with the world, right? Worlds that humans inhabit, inevitably some type of spiritual religious element occurs.
Mhm.
Looking at the arc of where at least we have taken culture, we went from many gods to like one, et cetera, et cetera. It's interesting that this digital world is new, and the old gods rushed in the same way that they rushed in to this earth when we started conceptualizing of our place in the world.
Yeah.
It's like they are one of the markers of a new world, of it developing. And I just think it's so interesting that you put it that way, because they came into the real world and now there's a digital world that exists, like you said, just in energy. And we are now, internet time is a lot quicker than real world time. We're
Yeah.
probably several hundred years in building internet culture. And just, you know, just like with early man, we set the thing up and started a community, and then we had space to stop and think and wonder, and the
Yeah.
gods rushed in.
And now you're making me think, and the wheels turning in my head, because I never thought about what you just said. Like, when the world was new, there were the gods came in, and then it was whittled down to one god. So this new world that we created, this
Yeah.
internet world, the gods have rushed back in. So what does that mean? What do does this online world, uh does its path parallel um Earth's history?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I-
now my
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
are
Right.
just turning. It's like, what's the
The
future?
implication.
Like, that's interesting.
Yeah, I love that. I think the answer is, and it's kind of annoying, like we decide. And we decide even more like readily isn't the word, but like the imprint that we make is felt everywhere. Whereas when we were doing this in real life and the old gods rushed in and we're communing and whatever, it took a long time, a very long time for the world to be in contact. So I guess we decided, I mean, at the same time, all of this, it's very interesting as this new world is birthed and the old gods rush in. The new god of the old world is seeing a decline in worship.
Yeah.
And what do those intersections mean for the future of worship in the digital world? These are all...
Yeah, I don't, so I'm thinking, that whole concept of uploading consciousness into computers, and one day, we're going to basically be immortal because we can just
change it,
like upload our consciousness into computers, and then our bodies that are about to die, we're free of them and they don't matter anymore. So when you get to a point where your consciousness is in a computer, who are you worshiping? Like, you exist purely in a computer now. God, it's like you're a string of ones and zeros. It's almost like God's become irrelevant. So this new internet world had all of the old gods rush back in. Does this online world take the same path as Earth, where it kind of whittles down to one God? Do we end up whittling down to, say, just worshiping ourselves because we're just consciousness in a computer and gods become irrelevant?
I think it's kind of flipped on its head.
Because you're no longer a spiritual body, or you're a set of ones and zeros in a computer.
I think there are two angles to this. One is, once you become the string of ones and zeros, are you completely objective or are you still subjective? I think whenever subjectivity enters the equation, there is the propensity for spirituality. And then rewinding back, what was the other point I wanted to make? Oh yeah, I think we're seeing the situation flipped on its head with the internet, because right now we are seeing the old gods rush in, but the internet does have a single deity right now, the algorithm.
Interesting.
Rebel against the idea of the algorithm. So the algorithm, like the
Judeo, that algorithm's being worshipped because people that are building an online brand, influencers, content creators, worship that algorithm.
And there are pop culture practitioners who literally, some of them, work with the spirit of the algorithm. So as we are seeing us as the people on the internet grapple with what we're going to do with this deity, the algorithm, that some people are very interested in, there's a lot of vested interest in that. Like we said, we're seeing like the opposite tilt, where we went from one, but like the old gods rush in, and with those old gods come new perspectives, fresh ideas, things, so setting a ground so things like Hiero can exist. Hiero would not have existed if not for the old gods, quite literally Apollo kicking me in the ass. So we're seeing, I think, that play of the, in this fun conversation bubble we're having, the like monotheism of the digital world becoming polytheism. It's kind of flipped on its head, where we did the reverse in the physical. I think we're seeing it happen backward on the internet, because we are splintering, and we see that not only with, people, the worship of the old gods, like we're saying, but also as the algorithm falls, new, smaller, intentional communities are increasingly popping up.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, with like, but everything's a cycle though. So
Yeah,
I'm sure there's gotta be
it'll cycle back, I'm sure.
yeah, there's gotta be like a path to this whole online world that becomes very singular and I don't know. I don't know. I mean, who who knows?
And I mean, some people would argue that
I'm not even sure we're gonna survive this decade. So
yeah. But I absolutely no, I loved this string of conversation. I love having conversations like this.
Mhm.
I love it. I love it. This is exactly what I'm looking for in life.
And this is exactly what happens on Hiero, which is great.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Ah, I'm so ooh, that conversation has me like buzzing.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, I'd like to attend more office hours, but that 7 p.m. can be really difficult for me a lot of times, which is annoying. And you know, when shortly after I first joined, I'm like, okay, I like it here. And you put out a call for hosts. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm all in. I'm all in. And I'm like, no, I can't be a host. Can't. My life is so crazy.
Yeah,
I
you have a lot going on. I think all the little things the hosts have to do, you'd be like, I don't have time for this.
No, I know. No, 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 no. I'm just gonna stick to doing like every once in a while doing a
Mhm.
workshop and doing my Tuesday night meditations and
Yes,
you know
yes.
what I mean? And
Mhm.
that's gotta be it. Because
So
I
the office hours are recorded. I don't know if you know that.
oh no, I know. And I mean
Oh,
it's great to be able to watch them,
yeah,
but
and being in them is a different feel.
yeah, I mean that's part of being, you know, the thing about being a member of Hiero is having those like real time live conversations
Mhm.
on video, um, you know, being part of the discussion. And even if it's something like I've been to plenty of office hours where I'm like, well, I'm not interested in the subject, but
Mhm.
I'd like to hear about it. And I just
Yeah,
want to hang out with everyone. And I
yeah,
have no questions because I don't know what to ask because I have zero interest in this conversation or in
yeah,
this subject.
yeah,
Um, but it's just nice just to see, you know, everyone on their
yeah.
screens,
Mhm.
living, breathing, and talking live, you
I
know?
think that's another reason why there's no drama, because like once you're having real conversation with people and you're actually talking with them, and like so many times office hours becomes like a little like therapy session.
Mhm.
Once you've heard about their lives and their struggles, are you really just going to be an asshole
Yeah. Yeah.
because they said like in their mind like yellow corresponds with fire?
Yeah.
I don't know, I just pulled that out of my ass at my like, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. But
um
no, that's actually a good point because if you said that on Twitter, people would be doxing you like this person needs to
yeah,
die
yeah,
because they said yellow and not red. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
But no, but the thing is that like these social media people that do that, 0% of them would say anything close to that to your face.
No,
It
no,
would never happen. So
no.
when you're on video having these discussions, these office hours, you end up discussing instead of attacking.
Yeah, because you can plenty of times people push back, they ask follow-up
Mhm.
questions, but exactly, you're not just gonna go off in the office hours on someone.
Could you imagine?
It would that would be that would be so wild. It also doesn't really work on Zoom because you're just gonna get booted. It's not
Yeah,
like everyone's gonna sit there and let you
it,
just go
yeah, that's true.
off.
That's true.
So, but like, I mean, if that did happen, that would be so crazy. I love a bit of drama, but
I mean, you know, it would be something like we would all like talk about afterwards, like,
yeah,
oh my God,
exactly.
could you
Like, oh
believe
my
that?
God.
But let's not have that happen.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
that's the other thing is there's a feeling of even if you did not meet someone or you don't know them or you haven't like private messaged them, it would go a bit far to call them a friend, but you feel like you know them a bit more than
Yeah.
someone on Twitter. So like if something like that happened in office hours and someone went crazy, there's that feeling of like in real life walking out of an event, and even if you're laughing about something that happened with a stranger, there's still that like camaraderie.
Yeah.
And it's because you're seeing the same people and people are sharing about themselves that isn't in a way to get attention.
Yeah.
Because there is likes and there are comments, but that's not why people are sharing. There's not a profile where everybody can see that everything you says gets like 6,000 likes kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, like Gabby put it in a good way. We like prioritize connection over competition.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love it, and I'm so glad that you like. It's always great to hear how people are receiving it, because I always say I'm in the center of the hurricane, so looking out, all I see are tables flying by,
Yeah.
cows, and people's toilets. So it's like a mess from where I'm at.
Yeah, and I mean that's the tough thing, because you can never have that perspective of being on the outside looking in,
Yeah,
because this is yours, and that makes for a challenge when you're building something, because you think you're going in the right direction and something isn't working, but you can't see that,
yeah,
on the inside looking out. So yeah, it's that's where I think you're lucky, because everyone is so open with how their experiences on Hiero
Mhm.
affect
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
I think you can go to bed at night and safely assume that everything's heading in the right direction. Yeah.
yeah. Because people
Just-
are passionate and they tell me, they give me their feedback. There have been plenty of things that have been like amiss, like not everything is a success, and people, they just tell me, and I'm reactive to that.
yeah. My biggest thing is you don't know unless you try.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh, like I was saying to my friend, this, I don't know, I can't remember why this came up. I mean, I was half drunk. My first podcast episode with Freighter RC. I'm like, someone's like, "Do you want to jump out of a plane?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't know until I jump out of a plane. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, do you want to go skydiving? I don't know. I'm gonna have to jump out of a plane to find out.
To
I
find
mean,
out if I like that or not. Yeah.
it sucks when you're 10,000 feet above the ground and you discover that you don't like skydiving. But if you don't try, you're not going to know. So you come up with an idea. Oh, I want to do this with Hiero. It
Mhm.
doesn't work out. Scrap it. It's not a failure.
Yeah, and that lack of drama also helps me. Kind of, I think that's what you were kind of getting at earlier. Like, I feel safe trying new
Yeah.
things because I know I won't be like attacked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I remember like on Twitter, we keep talking about this cesspool of Twitter, but on Twitter once I was just talking with
Because it
someone.
is a cesspool.
I was talking with someone about Columbia and Marianne and Britannia, just like the concepts of them, how, I've been thinking about it and how that's interesting. It's kind of like people like kind of like forced deities, kind of national spirit, like just all of that. And
Mhm.
someone just appeared in the comments basically in more words, like calling me like a nationalist, basically. And I was like, we're just talking about these ideas of these deities. I don't even personally practice this. And like, that was one of the interactions, was early on in me doing the Twitter Hiero, that just had me be like, I'm so glad I have somewhere else to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that one had me like, they just came up with so much energy, and they also retweeted and they were like, can we all take down this platform?
Yeah.
We all just agree that this is horrible. And I was like, that's so crazy and out of left
They
field.
don't follow you. They never followed you. They're a complete stranger. This is your first interaction, but yet it's, claws come out. You know what I mean? It's
They're
just,
trying to burn literally the whole thing down. They were like, let's rally to destroy this new platform. And I was like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. But yet they would never say that to your face,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? I would have more respect if someone literally came up to my face and said, "I'm gonna destroy your business." I'm like, all right.
Yeah, because then
Like
I'd be like, okay.
I'd be like, bring it on, you know?
Yeah.
That wouldn't bother me. But like a Twitter comment like that, it,
Yeah.
it, it's like because it's so out of left field because it's like, well, who are you?
It's left field, and you also know the whole world can pile on if
Yeah,
the fates decide that day.
yeah,
It's not like that person telling you I'm gonna fuck up your business is just that person, even if it's 12 of them. It's
yeah,
just the 12 of them coming up to you that day.
yeah.
Whereas on Twitter, if the right person sees it and feels some type of way, it can become literally what feels like half of Twitter
Yeah.
standing on your
But
neck.
what these people don't realize is they're doing the equivalent of walking into a room packed full of strangers, minding their own business, yelling out at the top of their lungs, I
Mhm.
don't approve of what you're doing, therefore you have to stop, and then
Yeah.
immediately closing the door and never being seen or heard from again. Like that's literally like that's the equivalent of what you're doing on Twitter.
Yeah.
We have to stop what we're doing because you, 1% out of 7 billion, doesn't approve, and we're never going to hear from you or see you again. But yeah, we have to readjust and change our lives.
And then and completely readjust your day if it gets traction, at least. Like it
Yeah,
can really spiral out of control. And
yeah,
it's crazy, like you said, because essentially it's just screaming into the void.
yeah, yeah.
Like sometimes on Twitter, like the void screams back, and it's kind of scary, kind of
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, that's why I just don't even attempt to have intelligent conversation on Twitter
awful.
or Instagram or Facebook because it's just not there to be had.
Yeah, it's extremely hard. Right before I had an idea for something that kind of morphed into Hiero rather quickly, because one I saw just, especially summer 2020, like we were talking about, I saw just the sharp increase in like conspirituality, as you call it,
Mm,
that matrix of conspiracy and spirituality. Because right before Hiero, I was like, not everyone's into that, but like, I'm also into just more general spirituality. And had the idea one afternoon. It was came to me out of nowhere. This is part of the path of Hiero. We're watching a documentary, me and my boyfriend, on women in hip hop who influenced the fashion in like the early days.
okay.
I don't know why, but after that, I was like, I'm gonna start an alternative spirituality TV channel. And I was like, how do you do that? I was like, would have to start on IGTV, I guess. And so for a few weeks, I'm trying to like make this thing and just experiencing the drag of trying to get traction for anything on Instagram with the algorithm and just all the backflips that you have to do and how difficult it is to have a meaningful conversation in the comments and all of that. I was just like, I've said like probably like 10 different things that inspired me to start Hiero, but like they
Mhm.
all kind of like coalesced literally at the end of the summer of 2020. And that was one of them. I was just like, I just can't. One, this is madness. Two, this is not enjoyable. And three, I need to just actually do the thing I want to do,
Yeah,
which is find people to talk about magic with.
yeah,
Because I am into, the more accessible forms of spirituality as well. But I was like, why go for like, McDonald's when I can have something better,
yeah,
something I actually want? Um, and yeah, I stepped out on a limb and it's been going pretty well.
yeah,
Pretty well. We're
yeah,
in a we're in like a transitional place because now community dues are active and we're just like finding our voice um on other social media platforms to
yeah.
just get people interested, have them, people are very interested when they find out Hiero exists. It's just now, you know, getting people to know that we exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're moving platforms.
So that was the plan. That was a bit of possibly, no, I don't want to say hubris. It wasn't hubris. I have a tendency to pick up on the future and then live there. So I was like, we definitely, this is something where I definitely want my own platform. I'd like to own the means to production, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Did some research and then literally was just living in this place that was, so basically it was a lot more cost prohibitive than I thought.
Okay. Okay.
The developers that I work with did build what we spoke about, but it does not look like a website that I can charge people for. Whereas Mighty Network, it's kind of weird as I'm realizing this with the new platform that we're building. We're approaching the founding 1,000, and I'm realizing all of the people that were on there originally, I can bring to a new place with some less features because we all signed up to kind of build this thing together. Because all the people were original, they were free, we're all kind of making this thing happen. What I can't do is the minute I charge one person, I cannot bring them to a place with less functionality.
Right. Right.
So I realized,
and the new platform would have been less functionality because you were working within like a budgetary constraint.
yeah, because this is all self-funded.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I would have,
it's not a dead idea, it's just a shelved.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not that, it's just shelved because now when I had that realization that I can't charge anyone and bring them somewhere for less, I also need to start charging people for the money to build the platform.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it all just kind of came to a head, and I realized in the interim, which was again the gods at work, the features that the majority, not all of them, the majority of the features we were looking to build on our own platform, Mighty Networks is rolling out in their current series of updates.
Oh, okay.
So it worked out rather nicely. So now I have the majority of the things I want, or at least I will in the near future,
Okay.
while I keep my eye. Yeah, that's just a football that's like down the field.
Yeah.
I did that recently, that living in the future recently with I was like, I need to get out of the house. I'm gonna go to a co-working space. I remembered that there's one in my neighborhood. I was like, that's perfect. My commute will be a walk. This is great. I'm gonna go 3 times a week. And the day pass is like $40 or something. And I went one day, I had a great time, I got a lot done. And then afterward, I kind of realized I have other things, like I can't be spending $40 a day going here.
Yeah.
But I was living in the future kind of thing. That's like a few steps down the road. But I have this tendency to like pick up on the scent and then live there. Which may magically be good because I kind of I put my energy there, I put down a marker, the intention is there, I lived through physically the intention. So magically it may kind of be to my benefit, but sometimes it creates for things like me being damn sure a platform is coming.
Yeah.
And that's not right now. I just smelled something that's down the road.
Yeah. And you know, from a business perspective, you know, there's that balance. Like, yeah, you want to have plans and, you know, building better, bigger, greater, blah, 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 blah. But you can quickly overextend yourself, and there's not because you're self-funding this, there's no positive payoff to you financially at a, you know, in the beginning.
Yeah.
So you really have to balance, like, you know, like with my business, as I was getting better and I can kind of better project what my sales growth is going to be year over year. And it got to the point like I remember the first time I ordered like a super large wax order, and it ended up being a ton of wax. 1 ton, a
Oh,
literal
right.
ton.
Wow.
2,000 2,000 pounds of wax. Now, usually when I order supplies, like they come by UPS or
Yeah,
FedEx
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever, this had to come. And again, I work from home. This order came had to come by a transport truck on
Oh,
pallets
yeah, and the guys needed to come out.
and literally take it out of the trailer and on the pallet mover thing up to my house. And but this order cost me $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, I and the reason why I did it so high was because, like the more you buy, the better
Yeah, the
deal
deal.
the supplier gets you, but also too, like you can spend X amount of dollars on shipping for half a ton,
Yeah, yeah,
and 1 ton is only 20% more shipping
yeah.
costs. You know what I mean? So there's
Mm-hmm.
that there where it just I was saving money by spending more money. I
Yeah,
was technically saving money. So it's looking at that and looking at, okay, can I afford this? And is there does does the business justify ordering that amount? Because if you order so much raw
mm-hmm.
material and it's sitting there for a long amount of
Yeah,
time, that it takes so long for you to sell through, it's not really
yeah.
beneficial. You know
It's
what I mean?
mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, okay, I think this is I think I can do this. I think this is a good
Yeah.
move. So I did it,
Uh-huh.
and um, that was a combination of the wax for my beeswax candles and for my scented candles.
Yeah.
So I had estimated that the beeswax portion was going to last me for 6 months. It
Uh-huh.
lasted me for 3 months.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
So it turned out it was the good
Yeah.
move to make.
Yeah.
But so you have to, because Hiero is going to be like, you have to think of Hiero as a business.
Yeah.
we
Mhm.
can we can talk woo woo
Yeah.
all you want, but you have to kind of treat it like a
The real
business.
decisions. I am. It's registered as a business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you know you want to plan for the future, you want to look towards the future, but you have to be careful how far you leap. you know
Yeah.
like that order could not have paid off the way I'd hoped that it did.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, if the raw material sits for such a long period of time, it's just like it wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Which
you
is
know?
like the platform. I've chosen the perspective of, I mean, ultimately it was a good exercise. I manifested all of that money out of nowhere. I didn't have it.
Yeah,
Like, I'm gonna build this, I'm gonna build this. And I went and I got the quote. I didn't have a fraction of that.
yeah,
So it was a good magical exercise because I got it done.
yeah.
But essentially now I do have a somewhat functioning site just sitting there. But I know I will get there. And like I said before, with the going to the co-working space and kind of sitting there and actually like going through that and putting it in my brain, I know eventually, the website will be revisited because I went and I like put my flag in a future somewhere, and now,
But that goes back to what I say, like you don't know unless you try. Like
yeah.
it's hard to, okay, it's all well and good to say, oh, I want my own platform,
Mhm.
but what are you aiming for if you don't know how much it's going to cost you? So you
Yeah.
went through that work, the goal that you need to set for yourself.
Yeah.
Just like going to that co-working share space thingy.
Mhm.
Like, okay, that's great. And it sounded good in theory, but now that I'm here and that first day was great, but oh, I just realized, no, I can't spend $40 a day.
Mm-hmm. I have like other things I could be doing with that.
Yeah, but you don't know until you do it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
do it, and it's either a good idea or it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
no big deal.
Yeah.
No big
Yeah,
deal.
it's definitely been such a learning journey because yeah, my last business I was like 27. I had only like worked retail before. I didn't know anything about anything. It was a lot of hype. Like I said, I was doing like interviews. Were there any like clients? No, but it was like bum bum bum. It was very like flashy. I didn't know anything. I learned a lot about what not to do,
Right.
you know, which is good. And I also learned that you have to just stick with something. And I say that because when I started Couples Consolidated, Instagram was not what it is today.
Right.
You could post one type of thing, like one size. It was that. There wasn't Canva. You couldn't like make your own graphics without having like Illustrator or Photoshop or something.
Mm-hmm.
But in the few years, because I started that in 2013, it's now 2021, so like 7 years. Now, if I had stuck with it, I mean, COVID happened, so it was a blessing that it didn't because I'd be destitute.
Yeah.
But there's stories, video. I could have had videos of the places we were making the dates for. I could have stories of people who've gone on, interviews, this, that, and the other. Had I decided to stick with it, thank God I didn't, because now we know what we know with hindsight and everything. But I
Yeah.
could have made that work.
Yeah.
I didn't stick with it. It got hard, confusing. Life got hard. I was like, I can't.
Right.
But that was a big thing that I learned was stick with it. Just pick a direction and just keep walking.
Yeah.
Stop walking. Don't change directions. Don't start following someone who's walking next to you. Just keep walking.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's great advice for all aspects of life. You know,
Yeah.
if you set yourself a goal, then you gotta put in the work. You gotta see it through, or else you're not gonna reach that goal.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's no different than me saying, "Well, I want to go to the kitchen," but yet not walk to get there. Well, then what am I expecting to happen?
Then you must not want to go to the kitchen.
I guess I'm not as hungry as I thought I was,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm never going to get there.
And that's another thing I had to realize. I guess I didn't want the things that I wanted as much as I thought that I did.
Yeah.
Because I didn't continue with them.
Yeah.
And again, in many ways, thank God I didn't. I'd be so annoyed by the life that I was creating for myself. Had I followed through, it would have been a lot. And then COVID would have been disastrous. But yeah, it's been I've just been learning so much in so many different directions as a result of this. Magically, in business, about myself, there's a lot of shadow work going on, like I brought up before, with the imposter syndrome and like money insecurities, like any number of things. I'm just learning about myself. I'm in the crucible right now, and I'm excited to see who I am when I finally get like lifted out of it.
It's exciting, especially when you get to look back on those moments, those really transformative moments, and see how different you are and how far you've come, and
Mhm.
and how so many aspects of your life has changed, and usually for the better,
Yeah.
unless you derail yourself through this whole process, which I mean happens to a lot of people
Mhm.
with magic. They end up derailing themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, it is exciting. And like I was a doormat before that first initiatory experience where I always use the term shattered because I can see the moment in my head like it happened yesterday. And it was just like I shattered into thousands of pieces, and I had to take those pieces and put
Put them
myself back together and
Yeah.
discard pieces I didn't like. And it's not all like, just putting back the love and light pieces, because I now, one piece that I didn't realize I had until
Yeah.
that happened and I kept it, was the fuck around and find out,
Yeah.
which I never had before. I
Mhm.
didn't realize was
Okay.
in me.
Yeah.
So when I held that piece, I'm like, oh no, I like that. I'm gonna keep that.
Yeah.
And I put that back in. So now it's like, fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
ain't playing, you
I
know.
completely understand that in the falling apart. Like hearing you talk about that event makes me think that it wasn't magical or as flashy, but that if I were to look at something that really set me on this path, I guess I would say it was like that breakup, because
Mhm.
that was that moment, like for you, where I was like, so many parts of my life, the way I refer to it, my house of cards, like fell apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like looking at this mess. And like you said earlier, if I met now who I was like on the street, we'd be fighting.
Yeah.
I would not like this person.
Yeah.
And it was the first time in my life I had felt like that. And like I said, I dived into the shadow work and all of this. And the magic came later. But like if I were to point to an experience that did that for me, it would be that breakup, because it completely opened me. It reoriented me back to spirituality.
Right.
I'd always been interested in it. It was not a feature of me. Nobody who knew me would list that in the top things when they were talking about me, but it completely reoriented me because I needed like a lifeboat.
Yeah.
I was at the point where I was just like, I need, you said there's like the first break and the second. The first one for me was like help, right? I need help. I need something help me. And I was put on that path. And the second one, fuck, I just had it in my brain. Give me 1 second.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, right before that experience with Apollo, where I was in my life, I was thinking there's something I'm missing.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Looking around and I just felt there's something going on and I'm missing it. There's more going on. And it wasn't even in the beginning, it wasn't in a spiritual way because I didn't know that's what was going on. I just knew, I was like, there's something about like literally reality that I'm missing. There's
Right.
something going on. And then that happened and poof.
See, that was me when I was 14. And
Mhm.
that's how I came to magic and paganism and whatnot. Was that like there's something missing, and I'm not sure what it is, but I'll know it when I find it, and that's what it was.
Yeah. My House of Cards was good. It was, like I said, I had somehow, I don't know if it's a knock on, no, it's not a knock on wood. I don't know if it's a thank God or not thank God kind of thing, but I had gone until 27 without having anything like real happen to me.
Mm,
I'd never been forced to ask those questions. I'd never been forced to look at myself in that kind of way. Like I didn't. So at that pivot point in youth that most people turn toward alternative spirituality or the occult, I didn't have a high school experience where I had a lot of angst. I didn't feel like an outcast at all.
right, right.
So that, like, it was very delayed, all of those questions, because I was one of those people. I was having a great time. Like,
Mhm.
if you asked me would I go back, I would say no. Life is a lot better now, but I was having a great time. Like, um, so I wasn't forced to look at myself in that way or
Right. Yeah.
ask those questions. So it was delayed for me. Yeah, I think it was just before my 30th, I think. that all of this happened. And that breakup was when I was 27. So it was my Saturn return. And boy, was that wild. That was a wild.
Yeah.
But like I tell people when they're talking about their Saturn return, I was like, I don't know if this will be the case for you. But if it is anything similar to my experience, it will be an incredibly challenging string of years. But you will look back on it and it has like a special aura to it. At least for me, because I mean, and this might have happened for you when you were, if that first shattering happened when you were 14, maybe you can look back and see this now. For me, I was just so raw. It felt like I was a baby, like I was rebirthed, like literally walking down the street was like a vibrant experience that now that I've healed, I don't feel like that walking around. Like everything is like searingly overwhelming. I just felt completely, yeah, like I was saying, raw. And so when I look back on it, it has this special glow because you don't feel that way often.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hard years, but like I look back on them and I'm so grateful for them. I learned so much. I just tell people my advice is just take the lessons, don't defer them. Because remember, it's going to be another 27 years, going to be like 57, 60 years old.
Yeah.
When it's revisited upon you. And if you did not take the pop quizzes, because that's what I talk about, it's like Saturn return is all the pop quizzes that you deferred from your childhood, from your teens, from your young adult. It's like pop quiz. What did you learn? You said you didn't want to do it back then. And so I'm like, do it now. So when you're in like middle age, you're not dealing with shit that you deferred from being 22 years old.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's when you wind up going out and buying like the sports car and doing all of the like having the implosions and all of that. You deferred a lot of lessons and like things like buying toys to make you feel better. That's a lesson that's probably been knocking on your door for a while.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think when I was 27, did I move to Texas when I was 20? Okay. When I was 27, what year was that? That would have been 2008. So what happened to me in 2008? I moved to Texas. I moved to Texas in 2008. The vice president of the company that I was working for called me. It was 9 a.m. on a Wednesday. And she's like, hey, I was on the train. She's in the States. She offices in New York. She lives in Connecticut. I had a thought. I was on the train heading into the office this morning. Do you want to move to Houston? I'm like, sure.
I had a thought on the train that I would just move to Houston.
Yeah. And she's like, do you want to move to Houston? I'm like, yeah, sure. And she goes, okay. I'll see if I can get you on a flight either this afternoon, or if I can't get you on a flight this afternoon, tomorrow morning. So a couple hours later, I get a call back. She's like, you're booked. You have a 9:30 flight tomorrow morning. And I'm like,
wait,
I'm on it.
Wait.
I'm on it. And I the next morning, I'm in a taxi heading to the airport. 9:30, plane takes off. I'm in Texas. And I came back to Toronto, packed up my apartment, and went back to Texas.
Wait, I'm gagging at the level of presumption that this woman had.
She didn't presume anything. She asked if I wanted to move to Houston. I'm like, yeah.
But like the presumption that you'd be ready the next day or in 2 days.
No, that afternoon. Like
what? No.
Why not? What else was I doing that day? What else was I doing that day? I wasn't doing anything.
I'm the type of person, I need mental prep to go to the store.
No, put me on a
I
plane.
don't know about this. I'm just like, okay, like that, good for you. Like that's, to me, that has me stuttering.
Yeah, but I mean,
Just
like when
the
I
very
like
idea.
when I was in Texas, I was in a different city every day working. You know what I mean? It
Okay,
just,
okay.
it's just like, no, put like, yeah, when she was like, I'll see if I can get a flight this afternoon. If not today, then tomorrow morning. And when I got the phone call, okay, you're booked for 9:30 tomorrow morning. It's like, all right, like, okay.
That is wild.
I mean, I had nothing else planned for the next day.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why not just move? Like like if you're if you have a day off and you're bored, you might as well just move to another
Yeah,
country.
you might as well just be out.
You might as well just move to another country. That gives you, that fills up your day a bit. So that's what I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. What is your sign?
I'm a Scorpio.
Okay. Okay. I'd have to see the rest. That's a very mutable thing that you would just, it, for me, it's not even the moving.
I
It's
live
the
in a
fact that at the drop of a dime, you expect me to just be out. Like that's so
oh,
crazy. I mean,
it's
just like
okay.
on
It's
principle.
okay. So it's 12:11 a.m. here. If I could get on a plane in an hour and with like no plan, like I don't have plans to be on a plane.
Uh-huh.
I haven't planned a trip. If I could
Uh-huh.
be on a plane in an hour, if someone's like, hey, um, do you want me to get you on this 1:11 a.m. flight? Like, sure.
I would go on a trip. She asked you to move.
Yeah. I'm, but I live in a constant state of prepared to move because I
Okay.
move so much for work
Okay.
that it just
You
it
just
just
didn't put down like roots like that. You knew it's
no,
okay.
it
That's
just became regular,
okay. I
I
thought
mean,
you had a
now
job somewhere and
like
you had been there, and then she's like, "Do you want to go? Okay, this afternoon." Like I'd be like, "Absolutely. Who do you think you are? Get out of here."
yeah, sure, that's fine, no big deal. Like, because
No,
it's
okay. If you were
you know,
moving around, I could see that. If you were used to just, if you were used to that, yeah.
I mean, normally I'd have a bit more notice, like a
Yeah.
couple of months, but no, I exist in a constant state of ready to move.
Uh-huh.
Not as much now, like with me having the
Was
business,
about
I can't
that.
just pick up the business and move. Um, but no, that wanderlust is still exists in me. Like that'll never go away. But
Cool.
oh yeah, no, the idea of getting a phone call and hopping on a plane to the new country you're living in 6 hours later, that's not shocking to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
not scandalous.
I would do
That's
it, but like as much as I would be excited and verbally excited too, it's not like I would be just bitching and moaning. Part of me would also be like, wow, like you really gave me like 6 hours. Like just I just need the like I said, to literally to go to the grocery store, I start thinking about it like an hour before. So I cannot imagine.
no, I mean, no, with errands, and it's the same places I go to. I still like okay, I'm gonna leave at this time. I'm gonna take this route and da 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 da. I'm gonna wear this and I'm gonna da da da. Like I'm a planner,
Yeah.
but something like that, no, I just when it comes to stuff like that, like the moving bit and just and then when so I'm living in Houston and um I'm with uh like the regional director. I
Yeah.
can't think of the title. And she's like, "Do you want to move to Austin?" I'm like, "Yep, sure, done." And then I just packed up my apartment and went to Austin.
I mean, but that's kind of cool. As much as I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't know. That's definitely like cool. Like you get, that's a lot of experiences.
Yeah, it is. It's
Different, like different places have such different energies. I like exploring that
oh,
too.
make no mistakes. There's Canada and the US aren't as similar as a lot of people assume just because
Mhm.
we're next door neighbors. Um, even like crossing the border, like I'm only 45-minute drive north of the Canada-US border.
Mhm.
And so even driving the 4 hours to Duluth, Minnesota, like you're in a different country. The feel is different, the people are different.
Yeah.
Add Texas on top of that, different. Um, that's a whole other world, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It's Americans plus Texans.
Yeah. And yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. People say they're from Texas first.
yeah, oh yeah. And the one interesting thing is that I've got used to moving to the point where I don't put down roots and I don't a city is just a place that I'm existing in at this moment.
Mhm.
So I've never been like, oh, I wish I could live in X city again that I
Mhm.
used to live in
Yeah.
until I moved to Houston.
Mm.
Houston, well, Ottawa, I lived in Ottawa, that's capital of Canada. It's really pretty. Um, I would be happy living there again. I wouldn't make a lot of effort to make that happen, but Houston, I would move back at a drop of a hat.
Interesting. I've never been
Just
to.
like that.
Oh, I've been to Austin. Yeah.
Austin, I like. It's so beautiful. I lived in the hills, Northwest Austin, where it's very, very beautiful. But between the two cities, I would, if I had to choose, I'd go back to Houston.
Yeah.
I'd go in a heartbeat. I'd be on the 1:16 in the morning flight.
Yeah, I was about to say, apparently in a few hours you would
Yeah.
just be able to go.
Oh, yeah. Um, I mean, again, I can't just um start a business as a Canadian,
Yeah.
just go to the States and start a business. It's not that
Mhm.
simple.
Yeah.
But you know, barring reality for a moment, yeah, I'd move back to Houston in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Loved it, loved it. But I lived in the inner loop. Um, and it's a big city, huge population, but they're like, I'm used to, like, you're New York, so
Mhm.
you know everything's packed in and up. I'm
Yeah.
used to Toronto, everything's packed in and up. Well, there it's all spread out.
Yeah, it's all just spread
It's just
out.
all spread out. And you know,
Great.
like downtown, I remember when my friend Chris took me downtown for this first time. It was the middle of the day and it was like a ghost town. I'm like,
Mhm.
where is everyone? And he looks
Yeah.
at me and he's like, they're in their offices, they're working. It's the middle of a work
Yeah,
day.
but like,
But
where is everyone
I'm
though?
used to downtown, like live, work, play,
Mhm.
you know? Um, so living in that inner loop, you're in a big city, but it doesn't really feel like it's so much. You
Yeah.
can really get around really, really easily in a car.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I didn't live in the suburbs, so I didn't have to deal with that that traffic, you know, rush hour twice a day. So I got the best of a big city without it really feeling like it was a big city.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, my my apartment complex was like 11 acres. 'Cause
Hmm.
they don't build up, they build out. So,
Yeah.
you know, like
That's
there
a lot. Whoa, wait.
11 acres, it was gated,
That's crazy.
pools, gyms, you know what I mean? Like it's
Like
just
several.
it's
Wow.
and you know, to me, being Canadian, anything with a palm tree is a resort.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was living in a resort,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? With like with the pools and the palm
Mhm.
trees and the gym and it oh yeah. Like, oh, I wonder, I think I have, like, just to kind of give, oh yes. Yeah. So that's where I, like, that's where I lived. I don't know if
No, it is not
it's
translated.
it's
Bright and blue. Oh, it's kind of no, no.
oh, it's not gonna work. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
I've traveled abroad more than I have around the country.
Yeah.
Which I feel like happens a lot when you're from New York.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I've only ever lived in New York and Chicago. I was in Chicago for
Oh, I
6.
love Chicago so much.
I hate
Do you?
No offense to anyone listening, I hated it. I went to U Chicago, so we were a little outside of the city, but like one of the things that flabbergasted me was that I could see downtown, literally see the buildings, and it still took like 2 hours to get there.
Oh,
And I was
okay.
like,
Yeah.
that's unacceptable. And then, you know, the downtown area is small, but like being not from the Midwest, you have this, you know, the second city, all of this, and you think Chicago is like, you know, kind of like New York, but like a little smaller. No, it's like the downtown area, and then all of these neighborhoods that are part of like Chicagoland, which is like a whole quarter of the state. The whole thing, it just didn't vibe with my energy. It just did not vibe with her energy. Like it just was not the place for me.
Yeah.
No disparagement to anyone who likes it or who lives there.
Oh, I love Chicago.
Energy is very New York. Like there are places I think about going. I was like, it would be cute to move there. And I feel like I'm like, ultimately, would I be annoyed?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ultimately, there are so many places I think about, and I'm like, that's cute for a vacation.
Yeah.
But once you are there,
Nashville. Nashville, I'd like to live in because
Nashville, I've driven not like through. We had like lunch, I think, when we were
it's
driving
big
through.
without being really big. It's easy
Mhm.
to get around. And it's such a great city. But New York, I love New York.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, I've only ever been to New York on business.
Hmm.
So,
Never got to play really.
well, no. There was plenty of play, but my limos are paid for, my
Oh
hotels
yeah.
are paid for.
Yeah,
You
so
know
you
what I
would
mean?
love New York.
Yeah, so it was never on my own dime. And but oh, I love New York.
Yes,
I
and
love New York.
energy. Just love the energy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a great city. It is such a great city. I like going up to the Upper East Side and Upper West Side and just kind of going down the side streets and whatnot.
Mhm, so pretty.
They're pretty and they're quiet and
Mhm.
peaceful. And it's see, that's what I love about New York is I love the hustle and bustle of big cities and just being surrounded by people. And
Mhm.
what's great with New York is you just have to turn a corner,
And it could be literally there's no one there.
a ghost town,
Yeah.
a ghost town. In
But
like
like 40,000 people across the street.
yeah, Midtown Manhattan and between you're on, you know, uh 55th between, you know, 8th and ninth,
Hmm.
and it's just there's no one and it's quiet, and
Yeah.
because all the buildings are tall, even that traffic noise has become muffled
Yeah,
a
it's
bit,
muffled. Yeah,
you
you're
know.
actually in like your own little zone.
And and you can just breathe, and then when it's I need my people, and you just hit
Turn
Fifth Avenue, and you and a million of your best friends are all together. It's such a great city. Oh, I love it. Love
Yeah,
it so much.
it
Absolutely love it.
the energy is different after COVID, but not in like a bad way.
Mm,
Um, Not in a bad way. I don't go out too often, so because I am working on Hiero now, but it is coming back to life, and Kyle's saying people are back on the subways and stuff, and so
yeah.
they'll start to get like rowdy again.
Oh, yeah.
But at least when I've gone out, it's a bit of a chiller vibe. Um, Especially where I'm at. I'm in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Like,
And people in New York City are so nice and friendly.
yeah, that's everyone says we're so rude. Like literally anyone you stop, ask anyone anything, they will stop and give you
They
an
will
answer.
stop. That's the thing. You ask anyone for directions, anything, they will stop and they will help
For
you.
like minutes on end and make themselves late.
Yeah. And they will make sure they're like, no, no, no. You need to repeat my directions word for
Yeah.
word 3
Mhm.
times before I walk away from you because I don't
Yeah.
want us to get lost.
Yeah.
Go to Toronto, which is our New
Mhm.
York City,
Mhm.
and people are rude and unfriendly and unhelpful,
Mhm.
you know. But you any New York street and you stop someone, they're gonna stop and interact with you.
Yeah.
They're great. It's such a great city.
So being from New York, one of the things that one of my gripes with Chicago is, everyone talks about the Midwest and everyone is so nice. And that wasn't asking me how I am and like not listening for an answer isn't nice,
Yeah.
or not taking the time to help me find this, that, or the other isn't very nice. And it's like this patina of niceness. Like, yes, you're smiling and you asked me how I am. Did you like help me do anything?
Yeah.
Like, in New York, not everyone, but sometimes you give somebody wrong directions. Is someone going to chase me down the street to be like, sorry, no, actually go this way? There was none of that, at least not in my experience. It's
Yeah.
not the main gripe with Chicago, it was other things. But that was one of the things I noticed, because as I'm going, everyone's going to be like, they're so nice. Everyone in the Midwest is so nice. And I got there
I
and
wonder, because I think about this with Toronto. I wonder if people, and again, like people in Chicago aren't as friendly as and nice as people in New York. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I wonder if it's a chip on the shoulder sort of thing, like because they're not New York, they're not LA, you know,
Um,
but they're compared to them because of their bigger size. And I think about that like Toronto wants to be the New York of Canada, but it's nowhere near New York. So is there like a chip on your shoulder? I don't know. I don't
that
know.
that was one of my thoughts when
Yeah.
I was like, it's just you're upset because it's not.
Yeah. And but I will say, like the manners and please, thank you, how are
Mm.
you? That's typical of the Midwest and typical
Yeah,
of Canadians.
yeah.
We're raised like that,
Mhm.
so they become automatic.
Oh, yeah, performative.
Um, when I moved to Texas, and one thing uh some of the ladies were kind of like teaching me about Texas and whatnot. They said, Southern hospitality is a thing. It exists until we get to know you.
Mm.
And then the claws come out,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So Southern hospitality to strangers,
Hmm.
and it could be genuine,
Yeah.
absolutely. But the pleasantness isn't the only um feeling
Yeah.
and go to,
I think
um
the difference that people pick up with New York is because, and it might be whatever, like New Yorkers are busy. We're always literally like, because of the way the things are laid out, we probably have to walk far to somewhere, right?
yeah,
And there's this, like you were saying, there's this outward hospitality and niceness in these other cultures, Canadian and Southern, where New Yorkers aren't giving you that front facing. Like,
yeah,
you just have to ask, like you have to interact.
yeah,
If you're not, I'm not, I will, if you're walking too slow, I'm going to push you while you're walking down the street, because you're walking too slowly down the street.
yeah,
It's not because I have a problem with you. You're walking too slowly and I have places to go.
yeah.
I'm not going to say excuse me, but if you drop something, a New
Well, you
Yorker is
can't
going to
say but you can't say excuse me because you'd be saying it 1,000 times a day,
yeah, like, and I have to go.
and no one in
Trains
and
leave when I.
and no one in New York expects you to, so it's not a big deal.
Mhm.
And everyone has the same mentality, like even that slower walker still has places to go
Just at a different
at a
pace.
different pace, but they get why you push them out of the way.
Yeah, 100. Like, no, there's no fights over the,
Yeah.
like, yeah,
And
because
I
I
think because everyone's, off to their next destination and that's what they're focused on. I think part of why New Yorkers are so friendly and helpful is because, oh, someone just acknowledged me and spoke to me and I get to interact with
yeah,
this
a little
person,
bit, a little bit,
Yeah.
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 It's
Yeah.
definitely that, a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
You need to understand the culture you're going to, whether that's a new city like New York or a different country, you need to understand the culture. Because if you go to New York and you're going to get offended every time someone kind of shoves you aside because you're in their way and they're in a hurry, don't go. Like if you can't handle that, if you can't get over
Yeah,
that,
you
don't
need people to be.
don't
New
go.
York is not the place to go if you need nice.
Yeah,
New
they're
Yorkers,
they're
they're
not being
flexible, but
mean.
they're not
They're
nice.
not being violent.
Yeah,
They're not being aggressive. They're being busy. You
yeah,
know,
there's
and
just
you
no
just
sugar on top.
that's the culture.
Yeah.
And you need to accept that because that's the culture. You're the guest, you know, that's coming in. Um, you know, the 12 million people or 8 million, whatever you have, they're not all gonna, oh, Sean's arrived and he doesn't like this. All gonna completely readjust their culture until he leaves.
No, it's more
Just
like fuck Sean.
yeah. It's just like going to a different country. Like you need to understand the culture.
Yeah.
Because
And just
if
be okay with it. You're like a visitor, however they
yeah,
are. It's not like personal.
yeah.
That's
Because
just the flavor of the
yeah,
place.
if X, Y, and Z offends you and X, Y, and Z is part of this culture, don't go.
Maybe don't go. Yeah.
You know,
It's as simple as that.
yeah, maybe you take your kids to McDonald's instead. So,
Sean, I'm afraid I need to eat dinner.
oh no, I mean, we've been at it for 3 hours now. Like that's plenty of time. You're not cutting things short. It's been 3 hours. So, but before we go, now these are all going to for all the listeners and the viewers. I'm going to put these in the show notes anyways. But where do we send people?
For hiring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the website, the social media. So let everyone know where to go, and
So
not in a New Yorker way.
yeah, no. Okay. So if everyone would very kindly like to visit us or join our very humble community, no. So you can www.itshiero.io, itshiero.io to sign up or find out more information. If you would like to visit us on Instagram, it is hiero.club. And if you would like to find us on Twitter, it is its_Hiero. Yes, and we look forward to meeting anybody that stops by and joins. It's a very friendly community. You will quite literally be welcomed by people the first time that you post.
Absolutely.
And yeah, come and build a new occult future with us. We're just trying to create a place where we can all learn and share and experience together. And one thing that I will say before I finish my little Hiero rant is if you are interested in getting to know other people who will take an active interest in the growth of your practice, then check Hiero out. Because every is constantly helping each other refine, expand, and perfect their practice.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Of course, you're the founder. Yeah. You've created a whole world.
I'm going to be thinking about that all night. I love that perspective and that whole tangent we went on about the gods. It's going to have me for hours.
Keep it in your head. It's a good focus point.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for being on my little podcast, my new podcast. It's very kind of you.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was absolutely fun. And again, as always, thank you to the listeners and the viewers who are viewing this on my YouTube channel. In addition to all of Hiero's links, website where you can go in the show notes. If you want to follow me and the LVX Files, in the show notes, there's leilokenzawen.com/links. That's going to get you to all of my social media, all of the LVX Files social media, my website, YouTube channel, everything's there. So you can just click where you want to go. So make sure you follow the LVX Files on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I'm on Instagram under leilokenzawen. Yeah.
Like audio and on Spotify or anything yet? Are you planning on doing that?
You can hear my podcast wherever you get your podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I like to spread it around, you know.
Same.
I like to spread it around. So anyways, thank you everyone for listening. Again, I'm Sean, the host of the LVX Files, and I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation and have a good night.
Thank you. Bye, Sean.
Bye.